Chapter 535, The World is the Enemy. Arg! Shrieks of panic and desperation were heard as it was total overkill. In less than a minute, the Crimson Bug had been totally wiped out. None of the forces would ever believe such a speed when the word got out. Crimson Bug was comparable to the existence of a sacred sect. Yet, it had been wiped out in a brief moment. Even a Dan realm expert had been killed easily. Wang Xian was satisfied with what he saw. The power of the Golden Swordfish clan had gone beyond his expectation. Given their combat power, it was not something Dragonians could match up with. After all, one was a man-made Dragonian, while the other one had gone through the baptism of the dragon pool who had a chance to evolve into a real dragon in the future. Eek, eek. Countless crimson bugs were crawling around on the floor while Wang Xian swung his arm and hurled out the nether skull. Black nether flame immediately shrouded across the bugs and corpses. Sizzle. A somewhat petrifying sound was heard as the nether skull opened its mouth to gobble up the nether flame. The deity Lady of Nether Flame denomination would have never expected the nether skull could have devoured so much energy in Wang Xian's hand. Amitba, which benefactor is taking lives out here? Does he want to break the rules? At this time, a voice came from the sky as 20 bald monks emerged from the mountain to the south. They were wearing crimson kasayas with blood-red beads in their hands. They looked down with brows furrowed. Crimson Bug? Their disciples are all wiped out. Another voice came from the southwest. One by one, experts who had sickles and were dressed in oversized black hoodies sprouted out from the mountains. Their eyes were glimmering with black radiance. Dragon King of Dragon Sect. How dare you guys show up at this place? A group of experts were suspended in the air, looking over in Wang Xian's direction. Nya Wuya, at the center, glowered at Wang Xian with a hateful expression. The Dragon King of Dragon Sect actually wiped out the crimson bugs of diabolism. Gasp! Several experts from sacred sects leaped to the summit of a mountain at the southeast. When they looked over here, they sucked in a cold breath. Wang Xian swept his gaze across Donghua sacred sect and several sects from diabolism. With his lips slightly drawn, he said, "Crimson Bug offended me, so they deserve to die. Dragon King, I think you're simply digging your own grave by coming here today. After our sect leader eliminates Emperor Qi, it will be your doom." Nya Wuya stared at Wang Xian with bloodshot eyes as he bellowed in a low voice. What happened last night was just the beginning. There's no hurry, because I'll annihilate Donghua sacred sect. Wang Xian looked in the direction of Nya Wuya and spoke with a flat tone. Fine, let's see who will be annihilated. Nya Wuya clenched his fists tight as he snorted and leaped down. So it's the Dragon King from Dragon Sect who annihilated the remains and now, Crimson Bug. Are you declaring war with us? Asked the experts from Reed's spirits coldly, with their black clothing and sickles in their hands. I'll kill whoever messes with me. Wang Xian looked over and continued with an overbearing vibe, you guys are no exception. Amitba, if you commit a killing sin, you'll go to hell. The experts from Devil Spirit's temple slowly spoke. They took one look at Wang Xian before they turned and stalked away. Wang Xian curled his lips slightly. With an arm swing, the nether skull flew back into his hand, leaving a floor of ashes. Let's go. Wang Xian headed to the tallest peak of Huashan with a smile on his face. He did not have the slightest care about annihilating Crimson Bug effortlessly. The arrival of the Golden Swordfish clan enhanced the foundation of Wang Xian by 2 to 3 folds. Roving Sword could fight against a budding realm expert. Wang Xian could, too, handle or kill one budding realm expert. Judging from the situation in the underworld now, the strongest would be Nya Wushuang and Emperor Qi. Both of them were at most budding realm experts. He could fight them off. Hence, he was fearless. The annihilation of Crimson Bug only took a few minutes. After the despairing screams, the unparalleled expert of Crimson Bug finally knew they were from Dragon Sect. Hence, There was no hesitation in getting all the disciples to flee. I seem to have heard voices from Donghua sacred sect experts too. All the underworld experts have heard the growl and cries. Upon seeing the departure of Dragon Sect, the forces from the underworld then slowly followed behind. When they spotted the ashes tracing a human shape on the right-hand side, they took in some cold air. Within a short period of time, a terrifying force that was comparable to a sacred sect was annihilated. The power of Dragon Sect was domineering. We cannot afford to offend Dragon Sect. The Huashan summit had become a scenic area that was somewhat important. However, no ordinary men except martial artists were here today. When Wang Xian was nearing the Huashan summit, all the martial artists were already packing the place. When these martial artists saw Wang Xian and the gang, they were slightly stunned, with a look of awe in their eyes. This feeling is... Suddenly, Wang Xian's brow furrowed as he looked towards a mountain on his left. This was Wang Xian's second trip to Huashan, and it was also his second time having such a peculiar feeling. The first time was at the legendary Zhong Fang Immortal Bridge, another quizzical aspect of Huashan. When Wang Xian had attempted to look in that direction with his piercing eyes, he seemed to be blocked by unique energy. Today, the feeling got intense when he was nearing the Huashan summit. He squinted his eyes slightly with blue and red radiance flashing in them. I'm still blocked out by a kind of energy. It's just that the energy is weaker at this spot. Why does Huashan always give me a kind of feeling that there is another world hidden away within it? That energy feels like some kind of array in the Dragon Palace. Is there a great array in this place? Wang Xian had all the questions in his mind as he pondered while frowning. Strange. 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 Arrays were something that existed in legends. The only array in the underworld that he came across was in Donghua Sacred Sect, and the power of that array was so. The array over here had reached an astounding level, such that he could only sense a slight degree of creepiness with his current strength. Just as Wang Xian was standing there deep in thought, the various sects and clans from the underworld were heading to the foot of the tallest peak of Huashan. When those martial artists passed by and saw Wang Xian deep in thought, they were whispering among themselves. As soon as they arrived at the foot of the tallest peak, the alliance of the orthodox sects and diabolism had already divided into two distinctive camps. In terms of numbers, diabolism had fewer people than the alliance of the orthodox sects by a few folds. However, every diabolism martial artist was exuding a powerful aura. Before sect leader Nie Wushuang and Emperor Qi of diabolism arrived, all the martial artists were exchanging conversations in low voices. At this time, Donghua Sacred Sect released an order stating that the alliance of the orthodox sects would be eliminating Dragon Sect after sect leader Nie Wushuang claimed victory. Apart from Sui clan and Shao clan, who disagreed with it, all the sacred sects and sacred clans in the alliance of the orthodox sects were assumed closed. As for diabolism, all the denominations in diabolism had already decided that they would exterminate Dragon Sect after the battle. Dragon Sect was going to have the world as their enemy. Chapter 536, A Real Man Faces a Strong Opponent Directly, 1. Why aren't sect leader Nie Wushuang and Emperor Qi here yet? The arranged timing for their battle is about to start. The experts will always be the last to appear. Don't be anxious. When the time is here, these two unprecedented experts will appear out of nowhere. Those from diabolism are really disgusting. Look at them. He has snakes as his hair. How disgusting is that? Those are people from cursed venom. Among the devil sects, cursed venom can kill without leaving any traces. You should be careful. Otherwise, you might be assassinated before you know about it. Where is the Dragon King from the Dragon Sect? I heard that people from both the alliance of the orthodox sects and diabolism want to kill the Dragon King. As such, there will be two battles of the ages today. The Dragon King is too unruly and fearless. The moment they arrived, they annihilated the Crimson Bug. They have truly made enemies with the entire underworld. Wang Xian had just arrived at the bottom of the tallest peak in Huashan. The moment he stepped in, he heard all kinds of discussions. His lips curved into a smile as he looked across. At the bottom of the tallest peak of Huashan, there were clearly two separate camps. The orthodox sects and diabolism. Wang Xian smiled and walked towards the middle of the two camps. There weren't any people there and it could be considered as the separating line of the two camps. Now that Wang Xian had walked in this direction, the underlying meaning was clear to all. Dragon King of the Dragon Sect. The Dragon King. When Wang Xian led over 200 people over, the bottom of the tallest peak of Huashan instantly went silent. Around him, there were at least 100,000 people distributed densely across the bottom of the peak. Those weaker or smaller sects and families could only stand and watch from a far distance. The arrival of Wang Xian and the Dragon Sect instantly attracted the attention of the entire crowd. The separation line wasn't broad at all initially. However, the forces from diabolism instantly retreated as Wang Xian and the Dragon Sect stepped ahead. A first-class force from the alliance of orthodox sects also instinctively retreated a little. No matter if they were from the alliance of orthodox sects or diabolism, they were all fearful and wary of the Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. Is the Dragon Sect considered to be the third camp now? Damn! The instant the Dragon Sect arrived, those at the edge from both diabolism and the alliance of orthodox sects instinctively moved away to make space for them. I finally get to see the Dragon King. He's really young. Too young. The entire crowd had looked towards where Wang Xian was standing. There were roughly 200 people behind him. At the same time, soft discussions were happening everywhere. Dragon King, you will die a horrible death soon. Suddenly, an angry roar reverberated and shocked the crowd. The crowd looked over. In the direction of the Devil Corpse Palace, two old men in blood-red outfits were glowering at Wang Xian. One of the old men had a non-human eye. A terrifying feeler extended out and stared creepily ahead. The other old man had a blood-red spider on him. Both of them were glowering at Wang Xian with deep hatred. That's the sect leader and vice-sect leader of Crimson Bug. The sect leader and vice-sect leader of the Crimson Bug came with the Devil Corpse Palace. In the end, a few discussions broke out from the side from several disciples of devil sections. Wang Xian looked to the two old men, revealed a smile and commented, "In that case, come and take my life. Dragon King, don't be so arrogant. I, Yan Chong, will definitely let my bloody bugs devour all the flesh on your body." The sect leader of Crimson Bug clenched his fist tightly as his eyes turned bloodshot. Hee hee. Wang Xian smiled with ridicule. He crossed his arms and didn't pay attention to the remaining members of the Crimson Bug. Abyss. Dragon Sect. At the location of Heavenly Sound Sect, several experts looked a little bitter. The disciples of the Abyss being the disciples of the Dragon Sect had been deduced by others when they went to kill the experts from Donghua Sacred Sect. Heavenly Sound Sect had obviously obtained this information. Recalling the time when the Abyss invaded Heavenly Sound Sect to kill their saint and granddaughter of the vice-sect leader, they gritted their teeth and their eyes were as cold as ice. Dragon King of the Dragon Sect. Just wait for me. Where Donghua Sacred Sect was standing, the Lord of Sea Serpent Island stood there with a gloomy expression. Beside him, there were 15 other inborn experts other than his son. This was the full strength of Sea Serpent Island. The experts from Donghua Sacred Sect standing nearby also stared coldly at Wang Xian. Wang Xian could sense dense killing intent coming towards him. Ruthlessness gleamed in his eyes. He wasn't in a hurry. After the battle between Nie Wushuang and Emperor Qi, it would be time for him to address these grievances. The intense battle would definitely result in severe injuries or even death. Both parties might suffer severe injuries at the same time too. When the time came, he would be able to deal with the entire underworld and diabolism with Roving Sword, the 5 Dan Realm experts, and over 200 inborn experts that had come with him. He could just kill those who weren't convinced of his strength at that point. Wang Xian looked across the entire crowd of the sacred clan and sects behind Donghua Sacred Sect, Devil Corpse Palace, Devil Spirits Temple, Reed Spirits, Crimson Bug and many other forces. Nia Wushuang, I'm here. Suddenly, a thunderous roar erupted in the sky. An unruly voice came from a far distance away. The voice reverberated with tumbling tumultuous clouds and a man in a black outfit flew over from the north. The man resembled a middle-aged man. His skin tone was a little black and his hair had reached his waist. Behind him, he carried a black coffin. The person in the black coffin resembled a corpse that had been dead for 10,000 years and had no expression. Streams of black aura circled around him gradually. The man took step after step in the air as though he was taking a casual stroll. However, he covered several hundreds of meters with each step. He was insanely fast. The man stopped above the Devil Corpse Palace and waited silently. Emperor Qi. Everyone in Diabolism bowed down and greeted the man respectfully. Some experts of Diabolism were beaming with fear and respect. He was the equivalent of a god in their eyes. I'm here too. When the middle-aged man stood before the devil sects, sounds of metal clashing resounded from afar. Just like a comet leaving a trail as it cut across the sky, a man crossed the sky over Huashan. It was an old man shrouded in faint golden light. His hair was a little unkempt and he had violent and unruly vibes around him. His arms were of a dull gold shade and were glowing faintly. Behind him, he carried a long sword. The long sword spanned 1.6 meters and was exceptionally tough. On it, there were 2 other palm-sized rings. Sect leader Nia Wushuang arrived, stood above the Donghua Sacred Sect and stared at Emperor Qi. Below him, all the martial artists in the underworld, including Dan realm experts from all other sacred clans and sects, lowered their bodies and greeted Nia Wushuang with great respect. Emperor Qi of Diabolism was the strongest expert in Diabolism. All of Diabolism was willing to pay respects to him. Similarly, Nia Wushuang was the same for the orthodox sections. This was respect for the 2 supreme experts in current times. Over 100,000 people paid respect to these 2 experts. The only exception was Wang Xian, who crossed his arms and stood in the middle. With a face of smiles, he stood upright and looked towards Nia Wushuang and Emperor Qi. I've got to say that the appearances of the 2 of them would be even cooler with BGM. Chapter 537, A Real Man Faces a Strong Opponent Directly, 2. Wang Xian hugged his arms as he looked at the 2 supreme experts. With a smile contained in his mouth, he was waiting for the grand war to arrive. Emperor Qi, you must avenge Crimson Bug. The Dragon King of Dragon Sect just killed all our clan members of Crimson Bug. Out of the blue, the leader of Crimson Bug reported to Emperor Qi of Diabolism with grief and indignation on his face. Emperor Qi, who was standing in the air, lowered his chin slowly as he looked at the grievous leader of Crimson Bug. He turned his head slowly towards Wang Xian. Sect leader, the Dragon King and Dragon Sect barged into Donghua yesterday and slew Supreme Elder Zhou, along with 15 inborn disciples and hundreds of our elites. Upon seeing the leader of the Crimson Bug making complaints to Emperor Qi, Nia Wuya hesitated before he reported to Nia Wushuang too. Sect leader Nia Wushuang was still unaware of the fact that the experts of Donghua Sacred Sect had been killed yesterday. How dare you kill the disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect? Nia Wushuang narrowed his eyes as he peered over his shoulder and looked at Wang Xian. At the foot of the tallest peak of Huashan, the Dragon King of Dragon Sect stood out the most. With more than 200 people standing in a separate line, they were divided out from the orthodox and devil sides. At the same time, all of the people were bowing down with respect just now. Only a group of them stood there with smiles on their faces. Emperor Qi looked at the Dragon Sect. Nia Wushuang did the same thing too. Upon seeing this, all the underworld people held their breath with blank looks. In particular, the people from Donghua Sacred Sect and Diabolism who had a feud with the Dragon Sect. Both Nia Wushuang and Emperor Qi are looking in the Dragon King's direction. I bet they are finished this time. They received 2 supreme experts' attention, making enemies with 2 expert forces. This time, Dragon Sect is completely doomed. This time, Dragon Sect really played with fire. No one can save them now. Do you guys think Nia Wushuang or Emperor Qi would readily exterminate Dragon Sect before their fight? Possible. Given their invincible combat power, they might be able to annihilate Dragon Sect within a minute. Dragon Sect seems to have recruited another 100-odd disciples. What a pity that the Dragon King has offended Emperor Qi and Nia Wushuang. They will definitely strike. Those forces who stood far in the back were having discussions in soft voices as they witnessed the event unfolding. Provoking the 2 supreme experts from orthodox sects and diabolism would only bring the Dragon King down. I think the Dragon King is a cool and dashing person. Why does sect leader Nia Wushuang want to kill him? Gosh, he's a good man. Shut up, sooner. Stop spouting nonsense. Under such circumstances, annihilating Dragon Sect is inevitable, and it was caused by his overly unscrupulous actions. Mum, but he destroyed 2 powerful dominations of diabolism. Why? Lass, stop your comments if you don't know anything. No one is to blame except him. All the sacred sects and sacred clans dislike his way of doing things. Such an existence is just like hugging a suicide bomb. None of us want to get ourselves blown up. Back in one of the spots at the foot of Huashan Summit, the girl who had cried at the sight of Crimson Bug commented with discontent. Her mother was staring at her, giving her a lecture. The girl pouted in dissatisfaction. I'm supporting Dragon King, no matter what. This statement drew the harsh gaze of her mother. Heh heh. Seeing that both Nia Wushuang and Emperor Qi were looking at him, Wang Xian revealed a faint smile with his lips drawn. An ant. Let me kill Nia Wushuang first before I slaughter them without any effort. To them, they only had one enemy, and that was the one standing before each other. They would not delay their battle just for an insignificant ant or a weakling. Gosh, the overbearing supreme experts. The Dragon King of Dragon Sect is already powerful, but neither Emperor Qi nor Nia Wushuang regards him highly. The Dragon King is indeed strong, but he's just the strongest at our level. In their eyes, he is a nobody who could be killed any time. This is the spirit of a supreme expert. We're impressed by them. Dragon King, who could stir up a ruckus, was not even regarded as being in their league. What Nia Wushuang and Emperor Qi had said astounded the members from the underworld and diabolism. This was the demeanor displayed by supreme experts. They simply disregarded everyone, for they had only one opponent, the rest were not fit for them to waste their energies on. Upon hearing what his sect leader said, a hint of admiration emerged in Nia Wuya's eyes. All the disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect were wearing faces that were complacent and prideful. Look, here's our sect leader, the strongest expert in the underworld. Don't act brazen, Dragon Sect. It will be your death after our sect leader kills his enemy. The 2 leaders from Crimson Bug revealed a smile, looking elated. After Emperor Qi slays his strong opponent and annihilates Dragon Sect, I will pledge my loyalty to Emperor Qi. The 2 leaders of Crimson Bug clenched their fists in allegiance. Emperor Qi nodded his head impassively as he turned to Nia Wushuang again. Dragon King. Your death will come when my sect leader defeats his opponent. Nia Wuya stared at Wang Xian, growling at him with a face of coldness. After their battle, it will mark the end of Dragon Sect. Be it Diabolism or Donghua Sacred Sect, they had made their stands clear that they would be exterminating Dragon Sect after the battle. None of the ancestral sects and clans commented, as they just followed the flow. The entire atmosphere of the battle had changed drastically. The Orthodox sect and Diabolism were supposed to be at loggerheads, and they vowed to kill each other. Yet, the situation had developed to both wanting dragon sect to be annihilated. I must say that a force that has arrived at this stage is considered impressive. Some of them expressed their approval secretly as they looked at dragon sect. Some of them had pity in their eyes as they heard the gloating over dragon sect's misfortunes. Ant? Not fit to fight with him. Upon hearing Nie Wuxuang and Emperor Qi, coldness flashed in Wang Xian's eyes as he looked at their scornful eyes. Looking down on me, her. Wang Xian curled his lips slightly as he stared at the supreme experts who were confronting each other with flickering eyes. He sensed the mocking gazes from the surroundings, and a faint battling intent surged in his heart. I wanted to wait for both of you to have an outcome, or perhaps, reap the benefit after both of you were wounded. But I guess this wasn't cool at all. Wang Xian slowly lowered his chin with a fighting spirit filling his eyes. If that's the case, I'll show the two supreme experts that you guys don't rule the underworld. A real man should face a strong opponent. And a supreme one. Chapter 538, A Real Man Faces a Strong Opponent Directly, 3. It has been 50 years. Our diabolism has lived in seclusion for 50 years. Now that we have returned, we will definitely rule the underworld. Amidst the towering mountain range and below the majestic tallest peak of Huashan, Emperor Qi stood in the air and spoke plainly. Emperor Qi's voice instantly turned the attention of the crowd from the dragon sect as the crowd turned to look at the leader of diabolism with great excitement. 50 years ago, I, Nie Wuxuang, could suppress your diabolism. Today, I will still be able to do so. The underworld is still going to be our underworld. Nie Wuxuang lifted his head slightly and an intense battle will emitted from his body. Great. Show it to me then. Will you be the king of the underworld or will I declare myself the emperor of the underworld? Emperor Qi levitated upwards. A terrifying devilish aura was released from his body and the coffin behind him. Dang dang dang. Sounds of metal clashing rang out around Nie Wuxuang. Violent metal attribute energy and intense golden rays were emitted from his body gradually. Nie Wuxuang also started to levitate into the sky. They would be fighting at the highest peak of Huashan. SSS, terrifying. Their auras are too terrifying. Is this the strength of a supreme expert? In the face of them, why do I feel that we are just ants? Budding realm. Is this the aura of a budding realm expert? It's no surprise that they are looking down on the Dragon King. It's all because they are so overwhelmingly powerful. This is where a battle between supreme experts should be. At the tallest peak of Huashan. Everyone's eyes were burning with frenzied passion as they stared fervently at the two figures. If only I could reach this stage in the future. That would be the greatest thing ever. Some experts couldn't help but think that way. Will it be Nie Wuxuang who continues to be the king or will Emperor Qi declare himself as the emperor? Everything will be based on today's battle. The fate of the underworld lies in the hands of these two supreme experts. Disciples from some sacred clans and sects could feel themselves getting breathless as they stared fervently at the two supreme experts in the air. Nie Wuxuang. Emperor Qi. My initial plan was to wait for both of you to suffer severe injuries before I crush both of you. Now, I'm just not fond of the two of you. Moreover, a real man should face a strong opponent directly and annihilate his strongest enemies. Ha, let me join you guys for some fun. Show me exactly who will be the one ruling the underworld. If you wish to claim supremacy in the underworld, you've got to ask if I, the Dragon King, will allow it. Suddenly, an exceptionally brazen and unruly voice reverberated through Huashan. A peal of frenzied laughter followed and pierced through the clouds. Boom! Boom! A stream of flames shot into the clouds, filling the sky with fire. A stream of golden rays fell from the sky as though a 1,000-meter razor-sharp longsword had pierced through the atmosphere and into the land. Two terrifying auras erupted suddenly and reverberated through Huashan. One rose from the ground while the other descended from heaven. Arg! Screams of horrors broke out suddenly. Those first-class forces and devil sects that were close to the dragon sect were screaming in horror. They were petrified, their faces were as white as snow, and they were panting profusely. Powerful. How powerful. Supreme experts. How can this be possible? How can this be possible? How can the Dragon King and his subordinates be so powerful? Even the weather is changing. They must be supreme experts. The Dragon King and the middle-aged man beside him are both budding realm experts. This cannot be. This cannot be possible. Insane. Insane. Those who had witnessed the development would definitely feel that their world had been thrown into disarray. They looked fearfully towards the column of flames and a golden longsword that reached the clouds and saw the Dragon King and the middle-aged man sustaining the release of energy. How can this be possible? Budding realm experts, and there are two of them. The Dragon King and the middle-aged man beside him are both budding realm experts. Cold sweat covered Nya Wuya's forehead instantly as his lips turned a little pale. Their enemies. Their opponents. The dragon sect which their sect leader had no regard for had two supreme experts. Everyone in the Donghua sacred sect shivered in horror and felt as if their vision had dulled a little. All the sacred clans and sects of the underworld swallowed their saliva and their eyes were filled with astonishment. Two supreme experts. With dragon sect strength, they probably could annihilate the alliance of orthodox sects or diabolism easily. The surrounding crowd felt extremely bitter. They finally understood why the Dragon King could be so fearless and annihilate whoever he wished. That was because they had the strength to support it. So what if you were Donghua sacred sect? If both parties fought with all their strength, they would probably be annihilated even if Nya Wushuang was around. As for the remains and the Crimson Bug, what the hell were they? The only option was a mockery to their initial intention. That would be for the alliance of the orthodox sects to form a separate alliance with diabolism to stand a chance against the dragon sect. However, diabolism and the alliance of the orthodox sects didn't choose to do so after the Dragon King called out the two supreme experts directly. Just as he had said, a real man should face a strong expert directly and annihilate his strongest enemy. Wow! He's too cool. The Dragon King is too cool. Far away, Suner was exhilarated after witnessing this. She started clapping and cheering loudly. The lady beside her was dumbfounded. This time, she didn't speak a word. That was because there was nothing for her to say. Everyone in diabolism was stunned and couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Luckily, the Dragon King isn't part of the alliance of orthodox sections. Otherwise, I believe we would have to lie low for another 50 years. What the hell? How can there be such a terrifying force in the underworld? Experts from diabolism were scared out of their wits as they wiped away the sweat on their foreheads. In the air, the eyes of Nya Wushuang and Emperor Qi, who were brimming with battle intent, subconsciously constricted. Their expressions had also sunk. This was completely beyond their expectations. A force which they had previously regarded as insignificant had two experts at the same level as them suddenly. Feeling the battle intent from them, Nya Wushuang and Emperor Qi took a deep breath and looked extremely bitter. A slap. An open slap in their faces. Fight! Fight! Wang Xian shouted as his body was overwhelmed with battle intent. As he waved his arm, the fist-sized nether skull grew larger as it flew into the sky. Roving Sword also shouted coldly. He extended his right arm and pointed his longsword towards Nya Wushuang. The 1,000-meter longsword was absorbed into it instantly. Terrifying aura stifled the atmosphere instantly. Nya Wushuang and Emperor Qi were extremely solemn. Seeing Wang Xian and Roving Sword attacking them separately, they took a deep breath. Who would have expected this? Dragon sect? Great! Let's fight! Fight! Nya Wushuang pulled out the long sword from behind his back. In the process, sounds of the rings on it clashing with the metal body of the sword resounded. Emperor Qi patted his back. The next moment, the black coffin appeared before him. Ha! Great! Come! Show me if the supreme experts from Donghua Sacred Sect and Diabolism can kill us as though we are ants. Wang Xian laughed hysterically. A dense stream of fire dragon energy was injected into the nether skull. The close to 6-meter nether skull raged violently in black will-o-wisps instantly. Within the black flames, there were still red flames burning. Chapter 539. A real man faces a strong opponent directly. 4. Another true blue battle of the ages. The entire underworld, be it orthodox sects or diabolism, placed their attention in the sky as they craned their necks up with astonishment, respect, and fear filling their eyes. It was the trepidation of Dragon Sect. At this time, the nether skull in the sky had ballooned to a size of 5 meters, nearing 6 meters. The nether skull was burning with nether flame and the flame from the Inferno Divine Dragon. The creepy fiery red and ink black struck a stark contrast against the sky. The power of flames shrouded a range of several kilometers. Upon seeing this, Emperor Qi narrowed his pupils and slammed his palms softly on the black coffin. The lid of the coffin opened with an arm suddenly sticking out. The outstretched arm was covered in jagged scales, which looked hideous and terrifying. The pure black fingers measured more than 30 centimeters, radiating black luster. Roar! A bellow came from the coffin, which is scary one. 8-meter figure wriggled out of. Ghoul King. Dragon King. It was a surprise to have such a formidable force like Dragon Sect emerging in the underworld. But I'll defeat you today. Emperor Qi closed his eyes slowly. Kill. A frightful layer of scale armor overlaid itself on Emperor Qi's skin the moment he opened his eyes once again. His eyes were filled with redness, he revealed a pair of fangs, and his fingers began to grow. As though some BGM was playing, a bout of petrifying demonic aura lingered in the surroundings. Only 2 bloodshot eyes could be seen from the outside. Boom! Wang Xian made a swift move as he jumped onto the top of the nether skull and stamped his feet gently. For the past few days, he had been nurturing the nether skull just like he'd done with the Dragon Ball. Hence, he could control it more easily. Also, the power of the nether skull was much more compelling than the time when Deity Lady used it. After all, it was a level 12 spiritual weapon. Mixed with a black flame, the fiery red flame was spewed out from the nether skull. The flame which covered a surface area of 12 meters struck at Emperor Qi. Ahem, my Ghoul King and I have gone through refining 1,000,000 times. How can we get burned by this type of flame? 2 pairs of bloodshot eyes glowered at Wang Xian. The Ghoul King beside Emperor Qi jerked before all the demonic aura entered their bodies immediately. Hideous-looking armor appeared on them. Both of them ducked and dodged the fire attack, charging at Wang Xian. The 2 figures drew an arc in the sky as they raked their unsightly, sharp claws at Wang Xian. I have maxed out all the power in the nether skull. Let me see if you can force me to transform myself. Seeing the incoming assault from Emperor Qi, Wang Xian revealed a faint smile on his face. Wang Xian had been standing on top of the nether skull initially, but he slowly submerged himself into the skull. Boom! Emperor Qi and the Ghoul King reached him at almost the same time he entered. Daunting flames burst out from the ears, nose, eyes, mouth, and chin of the nether skull. Sizzle! The flame was destructive, giving off high temperatures that encompassed a range of 1,000 meters. Ka ka ka! Back at the tallest peak of Huashan. All the rocks in the summit were burned into ashes after the entire area was shrouded by nether flame. When the breeze came, it sent the ashes flying. Huashan, which was 2,000 meters tall, was brought down by 300 meters. How horrifying it was! It's the will-o-wisp. Emperor Qi had a drastic change in his expression when the flame shrouded them. A will-o-wisp was a flame that was released from human bones. Such a flame contained daunting destructiveness, in particular to Emperor Qi, who was a zombie. Arg! The Ghoul King let out a shriek as Emperor Qi made a move and disappeared out of the flaming range. His face was incredibly dull. After Emperor Qi and the Ghoul King left the attacking range of Nether Skull, Wang Xian slowly emerged from the Nether Skull as he fixed his cold eyes on Emperor Qi. "Did you call me an ant?" Wang Xian stared at Emperor Qi with a disdainful look. Clang clang clang. At this time, the sound of metal clashing was heard from the side. 1,000 meters of sword radiance filled the sky with a deafening sound. Bam, bam, bam. The walls of Huashan Mountain let out an explosive sound when they came in contact with the sword and blade radiance. Spiritual Sword World. Roving Sword was holding his long sword as he wielded the air with it. Sword radiance halted in the air with each strike. Within moments, hundreds of long swords coagulated in the air. The long swords were pointing at Nia Wushuang in all directions. Blade rules the world. A ferocious look surfaced on Nia Wushuang's face as he held his long blade in both hands. His body swirled fast and furiously, while terrifying metal radiance hurled at that space in the air. Boom boom. The long blade of Nia Wushuang slashed at the incoming long swords that were chasing after him. The entire sky was filled with radiance from the swords and blade within a radius of 1,000 meters. Bang, bang, bang. As the swords and the blade clashed, the metallic sword and blade radiances did not disappear. Instead, they rebounded off in all directions. Boom. The explosive sound was heard again as the tallest summit of Huashan had been shaved by another few hundred meters. Within a short period of time, the two battles had shaved the entire summit by close to thousands of meters. All the martial artists from the orthodox sects and diabolism were dumbfounded by what they had seen. They could not help but draw a cold breath. Is this the daunting power of a supreme expert? The repercussion of the battle actually cut the summit of Huashan in half. The force could almost tumble the water and overturn the sea. It was destructive. If they attacked a mountain, they probably could bring down a mountain that was 2,000 to 3,000 meters tall in 1 second. This is a battle between gods. The Dragon King and the middle-aged man with the sword were super powerful. In the exchange of blows just now, Emperor Qi was suppressed by the flames while sect leader Nia Wushuang was only passively defending. 10,000 people retreated to somewhere behind as some of them watched the battle in the sky with trepidation. They were really afraid that the tallest peak of Huashan would be knocked down, slamming right onto them. All the martial artists below and born would be crushed by the frightening mountain. They were also apprehensive of the sharp radiance and the flame in the sky. What if they fell on them? Who could defend themselves from it? Even inborn experts would be killed by that scary repercussion of the battle. The strength of the dragon sect far surpasses any sacred sects or sacred clans. Some of the Laozu and supreme elders quivered slightly while watching the battle. In the face of such a strong opponent, they could not even survive a single stroke. He must win. The sect leader must win, and so must Emperor Qi. At this time, the group of experts from Donghua Sacred Sect was looking malevolent. The domineering Dragon Sect and Dragon King. Only when their sect leader and Emperor Qi claimed victory would their anxiety subside. At the same time, the group of people from diabolism also glued their eyes on the sky. In their hearts, they were silently cheering for their god. And even for Nia Wushuang. This time, diabolism and orthodox sects were short on banners. Otherwise, they would have raised them and shouted, "Go, Nia Wushuang! Go, Emperor Qi! Both of you must do your best. Go, go, go!" Chapter 540, A Real Man Faces a Strong Opponent Directly, 5. Irony. The alliance of the orthodox sects and so-called diabolism was undoubtedly the greatest source of irony currently. The supreme expert from the alliance of orthodox sects and diabolism had arranged a duel. In the end, a third party interfered and forced both parties to stand on the same line, cheering for each other. This was undoubtedly the greatest irony. Nonetheless, both parties hoped the other side would emerge victoriously. This was because if Dragon Sect won, they would rule supreme in the underworld in the future. There would be no darn difference between the orthodox sects and devil sections. When that time came, all of them would have to lower their heads. It was especially so for Donghua Sacred Sect. They could already envision that if their sect leader was defeated, their Donghua Sacred Sect would also be annihilated. Dragon King. There's no room for your arrogance. Emperor Qi's expressions turned contorted from fury. He took a deep breath and opened up his arms. SSSSSS. The Ghoul King looked across Wang Xian with chilling eyes. Similarly, he opened up his arms, moved and appeared behind Emperor Qi. With their backs facing each other, dense devilish aura shrouded them. The scale armor on them covered and extended till both of them had merged into one. The Ghoul King and Emperor Qi shut their eyes at the same time. When they reopened their eyes had turned blood red. Two pairs of identical eyes with identical expressions. Emperor Qi revealed his fangs gradually. Behind him, the Ghoul King imitated his actions. Binary corpses cogenesis, catastrophic annihilation. Binary corpses cogenesis, catastrophic annihilation. The strongest cultivation arts of the Devil Corpse Palace. 200 years ago, two zombies rose from a graveyard. One was a man and the other was a woman. They had a terrifying move known as binary corpses cogenesis. At that time, the two zombies killed several hundreds of thousands of people. Countless experts were killed. In the end, Devil Corpse Palace relied on the Mara's coffin to suppress and eliminate them. Who could have expected Emperor Qi to have successfully mastered the binary corpses cogenesis? When the crowd from Diabolism saw Emperor Qi and the Ghoul King executing the cogenesis, they were astonished. Devil Corpse Palace specialized in turning their own bodies into zombies and also turning opponents into zombies which they could control. The most powerful move of all was the binary corpses cogenesis. This was the strongest art of Devil Corpse Palace. Binary corpses cogenesis, catastrophic annihilation. Wang Xian stood on the nether skull while staring at Emperor Qi combining with the Ghoul King. Come, release all your energy. Wang Xian sank into the nether skull gradually. Boom! With will-o-wisps and the flames of the Inferno Divine Dragon raging, Wang Xian controlled the nether skull to attack Emperor Qi. Emperor Qi's eyes were fixed on the nether skull. He grinned and his fangs grew to twice their original size instantly. At the same time, his nails also extended to twice their original length. Through binary corpses cogenesis, he could release twice the amount of strength. Boom! Emperor Qi gathered energy and streams of black devilish aura circled around him. He pivoted off and struck towards the nether skull directly. All the crowd could see was a black shadow flashing across. Boom! Terrifying shockwaves from clashes reverberated out and the immense recoil forced Emperor Qi and Nether Skull back by more than 1,000 meters each. Roar roar roar. Emperor Qi growled and extinguished the will-o-wisps around him. Ka ka. As for the Nether Skull, its upper and lower jaws clattered rapidly and the flames from its eyes raged even stronger. Standing within the Nether Skull, Wang Xian released dense flames into the Nether Skull. Who are you? Why haven't I heard of you before? I wouldn't kill one without a name. Tell me your name. At the other end, Nia Wushuang's unkempt hair dispersed, looking like a mad scientist. Each strand of hair was like a golden needle. He looked even more wild and unruly than the Golden Lion on TV. 2. His body was emitting golden rays, both of his hands were on the long sword and he was shivering a little. In each minute movement, the rings on the long sword would clash with the sword in a unique rhythm. Nia Wushuang's golden eyes were locked on Roving Sword vigilantly. The current Nia Wushuang could be considered an unparalleled swordsman. Before Nia Wushuang, Roving Sword stood upright. The long sword in his hand seemed to have merged with his hand. However, the glow of the sword was being emitted from all parts of his body. It was as though his entire body was a razor-sharp long sword. The golden swordfish race's initial weapon was the sharp bill on its head. Now that the bill had transformed into a long sword, there were more variations in attacks, and the attacks would also be sharper. The Dragon King has bestowed upon me the name of Roving Sword. I'll be the sword of the Dragon King. Roving Sword had its eyes fixed on Nia Wushuang without any expression. In his eyes, there was only his enemy, Nia Wushuang. Nia Wushuang couldn't help but shiver a little just by locking eyes with Roving Sword. The Dragon King has bestowed upon me the name of Roving Sword. I'll be the sword of the Dragon King. Nia Wushuang tightened his grip on the long sword and was clearly becoming wary. A supreme expert like him could grow into a terrifying existence. In the path of swordsmanship, the strongest technique was merciless swordsmanship. The main purpose of a sword was for killing. Merciless swordsmanship was developed to slay everything in its path. A person like him could very well be enlightened on swordsmanship and enter the realm of immortal. Nia Wushuang was exceptionally solemn. Immortal was above the budding realm. To break through to the immortal realm, one had to have the energy. Besides that, one had to gain the so-called Tao, or conception. Fire conception, earth conception, metal conception, and others. Other than the elemental conception, there was also the conception of swords. As compared to elemental conceptions, the conception of swords was harder to achieve. No sorrows, no happiness, no fear and no regard formed the basis of the merciless swordsmanship. Dragon King bestowed upon him the name of Roving Sword. Oh gosh! That supreme swordsman is, in fact. The statement of Roving Sword had started a lively discussion among the crowd. What did he mean by that? Did he mean that he was the sword of the Dragon King and the subordinate of the Dragon King? The supreme swordsman is the subordinate of the Dragon King. He. This is the Invincible Dragon King. Whenever I feel that the Dragon King is incredible, he ends up achieving more insane things. A supreme swordsman as a subordinate and his name was bestowed upon him by the Dragon King. This has completely overturned my common sense. Who in the world could possibly stop the Dragon King? The crowd felt a little dejected by now. They had all thought that he might be the Dragon King's brother or maybe just a friend. None of them would have ever expected him to be a subordinate of the Dragon King. A supreme expert as a subordinate? Namo Amitabha. Various Buddhas, please allow Emperor Qi and Nia Wushuang to emerge victoriously. I sincerely pray for it. Within the Devil Spirit's temple, the disciples shut their eyes and prayed sincerely with their bloody Buddha beads. The development had made the alliance of orthodox sects feel a little speechless. A group of bloodthirsty devil monks believe in Buddhas? What the hell? Nonetheless, they could understand the prayers of the Devil Spirit's temple. If Dragon King won, there would only be a single voice left in the underworld. Regardless, there were still some people who looked down on what the Devil Spirit's temple was doing. Kill the Dragon King and that Roving Sword. Sect leader Nia Wushuang and Emperor Qi, kill them. At this moment, beside Donghua Sacred Sect, the young lord of Sea Serpent Island clenched his fist tightly and shouted. At that instant, several dozens of thousands of people looked over. Seeing the contorted expression on the young lord of Sea Serpent Island and his father, they felt bewildered. If the dragon sect wasn't annihilated, Hai Jiao would definitely die. The young lord of Sea Serpent Island naturally knew about the outcome. Therefore, he disregarded how people would view him and cheered for both Nia Wushuang and Emperor Qi from diabolism. Even so, all he was able to provide was emotional support. Senior brothers, those are the enemies of the Dragon King. Let's kill them all. When Mo Qinglong saw the young lord of Sea Serpent Island, he looked at him with contempt. He turned around and spoke to the 5 Dan Realm Golden Swordfish Race experts. The Golden Swordfish race belonged to the Dragon Palace and could be considered to be the same as the Dragonians. Since they were stronger than him, Mo Qinglong didn't find it weird to call them his senior brothers. Alright, as you have said. 5 level 11 Golden Swordfish race experts nodded their heads emotionlessly and turned towards where the Lord of Sea Serpent Island was standing. A cold and ruthless light flashed across the eyes of Mo Qinglong while dense killing intent welled up within him. Hai Jiao. We will finish you off for the Dragon King right now. Chapter 541, A Real Man Faces a Strong Opponent Directly, 6. Hai Jiao. We will finish you off for the Dragon King during this time. The great war between supreme experts on the Huashan summit had struck fear and awe into many people below. Those ancestral sect experts who had feuds with Dragon sect were praying in consternation. Yet, an icy bellow was heard at this time. What? Hai Jiao was slightly stunned, with a surprised and awful look. All the surrounding experts in the underworld were taken aback, too, as they spun around in astonishment. Upon seeing the disciples of Dragon sect stepping forward, they all had a drastic change in expression. What is the Dragon sect doing? Are they clearing away all their enemies? The Dragon King and that middle-aged swordsman are battling with sect leader Nye Wushuang and Emperor Qi of Diabolism in the sky. Don't tell me the Dragon sect is clearing their enemies below. Hai Jiao is on their target board, and he's considered finished. He can only blame his son for it. If the young lord of Sea Serpent Island hadn't tried to kill the Dragon King, things would not have turned out this way. Death will be their ending. The surrounding crowd was discussing with horror when they saw Dragon sect glowering at Hai Jiao. Hai Jiao's expression took a drastic change, replaced with a malevolent look. He stared daggers at all the people from Dragon sect with frenetic killing intent darting out from his eyes. Kill me. You guys want to kill me? I shall slaughter all of you here today, leaving nothing to remain for the Dragon sect. Hai Jiao released murderous aura as the double horns behind him emerged in his hands. Behind him, his subordinates were also staring coldly at Mo Qinglong and the rest. Now the Dragon King and the other supreme expert are engaged in fights. Yet, you guys are still thinking of killing us. The young lord of Sea Serpent Island also turned ferocious as if he was a completely different person. Under the pressure of the 2 supreme experts, their mindset was somewhat twisted. Father, let's kill them all. All of them from the Dragon sect. After that, we'll flee to the sea. I don't believe the Dragon King can find us. The young lord of Sea Serpent Island growled with insanity in his eyes. That's right. We'll run and hide in the ocean. Not even a supreme expert could find us. Since the Dragon sect is trying to exterminate me, I'll retrieve some interest today. Hai Jiao strode forward with double horns clenched tightly in his hands. Behind him was the sound of tumbling waves. All the surrounding people stared at the shocking move and gasped as they quickly give way to Hai Jiao and his gang. Hai Jiao and his son are crazy. They have gone mad. Mad? How could he not go mad? Hai Jiao is a must-kill on the Dragon King's list. When either the Dragon King or the middle-aged swordsman emerge as the winner, the underworld will belong to the Dragon sect. Hai Jiao will not have any place in underworld. When that time comes, he'll be doomed for sure. He's not going to die in silence. Hai Jiao is going to put up his last resistance and fight back. Seeing Hai Jiao and the young lord of Sea Serpent Island, all the people sighed. He was the former second strongest in the underworld who had enjoyed glorious moments, an unparalleled expert that no sacred sects would dare to mess with. Now, he was forced to a point that almost drove him crazy. Hayak, I'll wipe the Dragon sect out. I'll see how the Dragon King is going to seek me out in the vast ocean. There was manic killing intent on his face. Before Mo Qinglong and his gang could look for him, he stalked toward them instead. Apart from the Dragon King, Dragon Sect seems to have no other Dan realm experts. These disciples of Dragon Sect are simply insolent. They don't have any Dan realm experts among them, while Hai Jiao was considered to be the second strongest in the underworld after all. Seriously? Are the disciples of Dragon Sect going to get killed by Hai Jiao? The surrounding crowd was surprised as they watched how the event unfolded. Wuya, shall we strike too? Since Dragon Sect has no Dan realm expert now, we can just eliminate them easily. Back at Donghua Sacred Sect, an old man clenched his fists tight with murderous intent in his eyes. There was a constant mixed expression on Nye Wuya's face. He craned his head up and watched the war in the sky before turning to Mo Qinglong and the gang again. Suddenly, his eyes were fixed on the members of the Golden Swordfish clan who were holding razor-edged swords in their hands. Seeing their indifferent, unwavering expressions, his eyes narrowed. No. Those people look similar to the swordsman named Roving Sword. Nye Wuya took a deep breath with eyes fixated on them. That old man was slightly taken aback as he looked over his shoulder and sized up the Dragon Sect's members in bewilderment. Dragon Sect, I'll wipe you guys out completely in the meantime. Hai Jiao repeated what Mo Qinglong had said to him in the exact words as the water current began to circulate frantically around his body. A daunting aura erupted, causing all the martial artists to stagger back in horror. Seeing Hai Jiao walking over with guts, trying to kill them off, Mo Qinglong was slightly surprised, but there was a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. Senior brothers, that Hai Jiao is a Dan realm expert. Please help us out. Mo Qinglong quirked his lips slightly as he spoke to the few golden swordfish beside him. Leave it to us. A golden swordfish nodded coldly. When they witnessed Hai Jiao and his men striding over with malevolent expressions, no emotions were found in their eyes. Go to hell, everyone from Dragon Sect. Fuck you all. Hai Jiao growled ferociously as he strode. The water energy was circulating madly around him. All the people within a few kilometers could hear the tumbling waves in the body of Hai Jiao. Under such daunting pressure, Hai Jiao had exploded even stronger combat power than ever before. Hai Jiao's strength is scary. He's too strong, way beyond any average Dan realm expert. He's indeed the former second strongest in the underworld. Oh no, the disciples of Dragon Sect were acting way too brazen, just like their Dragon King. They thought Hai Jiao would be wary of the Dragon King, and dare not strike. But even a rabbit will bite if it panics. Sensing the domineering strength from Hai Jiao, the surrounding crowd was looking shocked in their eyes. However, more people were staring at the Golden Swordfish gang with their long swords in their hands. Simply because they looked like Roving Sword. Could it be? Slaying Spiritual Sword. Return of the Spiritual Sword. Just when all the people had their own thoughts, two icy cold voices were heard. Just like the cold voice of the compelling swordsman in the sky. A spiritual sword that was 100 meters long lurched forward with unparalleled sharp radiance. Another spiritual sword of the same size with the same sharpness darted out from behind and returned. Two frightful golden radiances rushed out from the front and the back. The return of the spiritual sword. Chapter 542, Void Space Shattered. 1. Pa. What? This. What a horrifying sword. I could barely control the long sword in my hand. In an instant, all the surrounding swordsmen felt their treasured swords shaking violently. They held on to their long swords in horror while looking ahead of them. 2 sword strikes. Charge and return. They were from 2 different people. Arg! When the sword was released, the group of subordinates behind the Lord of Sea Serpent Island were instantly killed by the returning sword. They couldn't put up any resistance at all. That terrifying edge easily penetrated their bodies. What? The Lord of Sea Serpent Island was flabbergasted. The moment the two swords appeared, a deathly threat had him surrounded and sent chills down his spine. No. Father, save me. At this moment, the young Lord of Sea Serpent Island cried for help in horror. No. Dragon sect, I won't let you off even if I die. The Lord of Sea Serpent Island held onto the two horns and roared loudly with a contorted expression resembling a wretched demon. Terrifying water energy was contained within the two horns. He spread both of his arms towards the approaching swords from the front and back. The charging sword and the returning sword were simply too fast. There was no time for the Lord of Sea Serpent Island to escape. Moreover, he had his son with him. He couldn't just leave him behind. Hai Long stood before the Lord of Sea Serpent Island, shivering in fear. Rumble. Two extreme swords emitted dazzling golden light that shrouded the Lord of Sea Serpent Island and his son. Arg! I'm not convinced. A blinding light exploded from where Hai Jiao was. The surrounding crowd couldn't help but shut their eyes and turn their heads around. Nothing. Nothing is left. At this moment, a surprised scream broke the silence. Everyone turned towards the location where the Lord of Sea Serpent Island was previously. All of them were dumbfounded. Nothing. There was indeed nothing left. There were no signs of humans at all. The Lord of Sea Serpent Island was completely crushed by the swords. Not even his ashes remain. A Dan realm expert from a sacred clan was filled with horror as he looked blankly at where Hai Jiao was standing previously. What a terrifying sword glow. They are all terrifying Dan realm experts. Why would there be so many terrifying experts appearing from the dragon sect? A sect leader of a sacred sect looked in the direction of the dragon sect while shivering in fear. The two middle-aged men that had struck previously put away their swords. With a sword from each of them, they had killed the previous number 2 expert of the underworld. Gulp. Everyone couldn't help but swallow back a mouthful of saliva. Is this the full strength of the dragon sect? How many Dan realm experts do they have? Cold sweat broke out on the foreheads of some people. Nya Wuya and the experts from Donghua Sacred Sect could feel their hearts palpitating violently as their vision dulled. They were afraid that the dragon sect would target them now and annihilate the entire Donghua Sacred Sect. They were even more afraid after seeing how terrifying the Dan realm swordsmen from the dragon sect were. That would only mean that the supreme swordsman fighting with their sect leader was even more insane. Would their sect leader win against that swordsman in battle? Amitba. It's better for the underworld to have fewer killings. Amitba. At the location of diabolism, all the devil sects could feel their hearts skip a beat when they witnessed the 2 experts from the dragon sect killing a powerful Dan realm expert with a sword each. Even the powerful Dan realm experts from the Devil Corpse Palace were deeply fearful. As for the devil monks from the Devil Spirits Temple, they could only recite Amitba and pray. At this moment, everyone in the crowd was looking towards dragon sect in fear. Too strong. Too strong. Even without the Dragon King, the disciples of the dragon sect could still crush the entire underworld. No one would be a match for them. In a deserted area at the bottom of the tallest peak of Huashan, Suner had become the most frenzied fan of the dragon sect. She exclaimed loudly with excitement. The lady beside her pursed her lips and was filled with astonishment. Chapter 543, Void Space Shattered. 2. The battle stopped briefly because of the crack in the void space. Nya Wushuang and Emperor Qi squinted their eyes as they peered at the location where the crack appeared. As old freaks who had lived for over 2 centuries, they were much more knowledgeable than Wang Xian. They had heard of some legends and secrets in the underworld. Given their current strength, it was impossible for them to make a crack in the void space. There was only one possibility left if it wasn't the void space crack. It was the crack of an array. Nia Wushuang squinted his eyes and surveyed the surroundings with a grave expression. Emperor Qi did the same thing, too, as he revealed a pondering look. Wang Xian witnessed the diminishing crack in the void space, and his curiosity was piqued. Blue and red radiance began to flicker in his eyes. Overwhelming energy filled the landscape. Is it an array? Did our battle trigger some array over here? But this array should be a type of defense or concealing array. Wang Xian used his piercing eyes to survey the surroundings and pondered to himself. He stood on top of Nether Skull, looking towards Emperor Qi and Nia Wushuang after coming out of the Nether Skull. What is it? Do you guys know something about this? Emperor Qi looked at Wang Xian coldly without a word. Nia Wushuang, too, replied with nothing as he swept cold gazes at Wang Xian and Roving Sword. Since there are no answers from both of you, let's continue. A tinge of a sneer flashed across Wang Xian's eyes. Nia Wushuang and Emperor Qi obviously knew something, but neither of them was willing to divulge anything. Since neither of them spoke, then the fight shall continue. He would be able to get some information after killing them. Wang Xian submerged himself into the Nether Skull, and flames burst out from the skull once again. The daunting flame from the Inferno Dragon and Nether Flame shrouded the area within 1,000 meters. Upon seeing the domineering flame exploded from Nether Skull, Emperor Qi had the same grave expression on his face again. Clang! Along with thousands of beams of sword radiance behind him, Roving Sword swung his long sword in the sky, pointing at Nia Wushuang. Phew, I must kill you. Nia Wushuang exhibited a resolute look. There were two supreme experts in Dragon Sect. So long as the two remained alive, there would be a high possibility that Donghua Sacred Sect would get annihilated. Hence, he had to kill one of them. Nia Wushuang spun the long blade in his hand with the rings on it clashing against each other again. Kill! Killing intent surged in Wang Xian. When fighting with supreme experts, he needed to give his best, especially when he did not transform into a divine dragon. Also, the strength of Emperor Qi was not as strong as he had imagined. Compared to the budding realm expert he had met in Dubai, Emperor Qi was weaker by little. On top of that, the Nether Flame had a natural suppression for Emperor Qi. Wang Xian was confident that he could defeat Emperor Qi without turning into a divine dragon. Even though most of the time he was just relying on the daunting power of the Nether Skull. The skull that was almost 6 meters in size was burning with a frightful flame in the sky. Its mouth was wide open as it lurched forward toward Emperor Qi. With binary corpses cogenesis, Emperor Qi revealed a solemn look. He raised his scary-looking nails at Wang Xian and darted out. At this time, he was facing the same plight as Nia Wushuang. There was no retreating. Once he backed off, it would mark the failure of all of Diabolism. The underworld would belong to Dragon Sect, and Diabolism would have to hold the Dragon King as their supreme leader. Otherwise, they would be annihilated by Dragon Sect. Therefore, he had to kill Wang Xian off so that Diabolism would not be under his suppression. With one of the supreme experts from Dragon Sect dead, they could create a situation of tripartite confrontation. At the very least, they would not need to succumb to anyone. Boom boom. Every strike of Emperor Qi's that landed on the Nether Skull sounded horrible as they left white traces on the surface of the Nether Skull. Yet, the demonic aura was rapidly diminishing under the burning fire of the Nether Flame. Even the skin on his arm had turned gray. Chapter 544, Void Space Shattered, 3. The outcome will be decided soon. Oh gosh. The critical juncture is finally here. I wonder who will win. From what the middle-aged swordsman said, Nia Wushuang isn't a match for him. Could it be that sect leader Nia Wushuang is about to lose? The moment that will decide the fate of the entire underworld has arrived. The sky was shaking and the crowd at the bottom of the tallest peak of Huashan looked at the catastrophic final battles above them in shock. The battles had reached the most critical moment and the outcome would be known soon. There's no way our sect leader will lose. Never. Everyone in Donghua Sacred Sect mumbled to themselves as they looked up bitterly. However, they had a bad premonition weighing over them. In the previous exchanges, that terrifying and merciless swordsman had the upper hand against their sect leader all along. Moreover, they would probably have a good glimpse of the opponent's strength after such a long battle. If the invincible swordsman claimed that Nia Wushuang wasn't a match for him, he should be at least 70% sure that victory was his. This worried everyone in Donghua Sacred Sect. Similarly, all the people of Diabolism looked fearfully towards the sky. Their backs were drenched in perspiration from anxiety. My sword will split the earth. My sword will shake the heavens. My sword will shock the world. Rampaging heaven and earth strike. All the golden hair on Nia Wushuang stood up like golden needles. The sword in his hands shook violently. As the rings hit the blade, sounds of metal clashing reverberated. Terrifying sword glows formed a violent storm of heaven and earth strikes. The sword glow grew larger and larger to several thousand meters long. This blade seemed capable of splitting the sky and earth. The golden glow from the sword resonated with the metal on the ground. The pinnacle strike of the golden swordfish race. Seeing Nia Wushuang launching his strongest attack, Roving Sword was unmoved. He held on to his long sword with both hands. Before the golden swordfish race had transformed into human form, they only knew a certain type of attack. That was none other than lunging ahead with the terrifying bill to pierce through their opponents and enemies. And now, Roving Sword wasn't using the ancient spiritual sword technique, but the attack that the golden swordfish race had used millions and millions of times. The pinnacle strike. Holding the long sword with both hands above his head, he turned into a long sword and charged towards Nia Wushuang with tremendous speed. The moment he charged forward, an illusory image of a golden swordfish could be seen around Roving Sword. Just like an ancient god fish, he released an insane sword glow. Rampaging heaven and earth strike, slash. Nia Wushuang growled loudly and his voice reverberated throughout Huashan. They are going to clash. The outcome will be revealed soon. That's too scary. Too scary. Move back. Move back. My senses are telling me that the terrifying energy will even reach us. In the air, the terrifying energy of the binary corpse's cogenesis, catastrophic annihilation clashed intensely with the black flames of the nether skull. The rampaging heaven and earth strike that shrouded the sky was about to crash into the blinding pinnacle strike. Everyone's heart was in their throat. Boom! An explosion erupted and reverberated across the sky. Below them, the tallest peak of Huashan seemed to be cracking from the insane energy and pressure. The nether skull is cracking. However, Emperor Qi definitely can't withstand this strike. As Wang Xian saw, the nether skull was cracking slowly. For a level 12 weapon to crack under pressure, one could imagine how insane the power behind that strike was. What? However, sounds of glass breaking could be heard at this moment. To Wang Xian's astonishment, the sky above where Emperor Qi and the nether skull clashed was shattering like a piece of glass. The crack this time was much larger than the one before. It was as though their clash had broken the limits. Arg! Bam! Bam! After a terrifying cry, Wang Xian could see Emperor Qi overwhelmed by horrifying attacks. As for the nether skull, it had completely cracked open under a unique form of energy. Shit! The spirit array of the cauldron world has been broken by us. At this moment, Nia Wushuang's horrified voice resounded. Wang Xian was alarmed and looked over immediately. At the place where Nia Wushuang clashed with Roving Sword, the void space had been split open completely. Both of them were sucked into the crack. Wang! At this moment, Wang Xian felt an immense attractive force pulling him away. It was as though he had encountered a black hole pulling his body. Wang Xian was astonished but couldn't put up any resistance at all. His body was sucked into the cracks of the void space directly. This greatly surprised him. Screech, screech, screech. The entire sky seemed to be tumbling. The martial artists below were all shocked and dumbfounded. The space was shattered. The void space was completely shattered and the four supreme experts have been sucked into a different dimension. What is this all about? What's the cauldron world that sect leader Nia Wushuang talked about at the very end? What is that? Oh gosh. The shattered space is fixing itself gradually. Could it be that sect leader Nia Wushuang, Emperor Qi, Dragon King, and that swordsman have entered a different world? All the martial artists of the underworld were shocked. Bewilderment. Bewilderment. The sky was shattered like a piece of glass in the battles between the four supreme experts. Four supreme experts were sucked into it directly. Before the astounded eyes of the people, the glass-like space was recovering and gradually returned to how it had been before. The sky was clear once again. Wang. At this very moment, the entire world seemed to be shaking. In the vast sky, a cauldron hovered in the air. However, it disappeared the next instant. Everyone looked blankly at this mystical scene with their jaws dropped. The 9 cauldrons. That's one of the 9 cauldrons that stabilized the nation in the past and have since disappeared. Nia Wuya looked blankly at the space that was self-repairing, the appearance and disappearance of the cauldron. His eyes widened as he mumbled to himself. 9 cauldrons? Sect leader has gone missing. What kind of space is that? Where would it lead to? What could that place be? An old man beside Nia Wuya couldn't contain his doubts and roared loudly. In the Xia dynasty, the 9 cauldrons were forged. In the past, the 9 cauldrons stabilized and ensured the stability of the country. In the legends, each cauldron was a terrifying immortal item. However, the 9 cauldrons disappeared 1,000+ years ago. The sect leader once told me that it wasn't just the 9 cauldrons that disappeared. The immortal sects also disappeared. Nia Wuya mumbled and didn't hide anything he knew. His voice resounded throughout the crowd. What's an immortal sect? Could there really be real immortals as recorded in the legends? Could it be there's a different world that coexists along with us? A middle-aged man exclaimed loudly. An immortal sect wasn't rare in ancient times. The reason why they were called immortal sects was because they had an immortal. Those above the budding realm are known as immortals. Based on what our sect leader has told me, the immortal sect brought along the 9 cauldrons to gather spiritual energy and left behind the world to avoid the age of Dharma decline. Chapter 545, The World of 9 Cauldrons. The highest peak of Huashan was now in a mess. The peak that was in the clouds had been shortened by more than 1,000 meters while the entire mountain had a horrible-looking crack. Back at the foot of the mountain, everyone looked in the direction of Donghua sacred sect in silence. As the breeze ran across their skin, it brought hair-raising chillness. Space was cast aside without any worldly care to gather the spiritual energy. It was a way to avoid the age of Dharma decline. Nia Wuya gravely continued his speech. According to the legend, the experts from the immortal sects sensed the diminishing spiritual energy of heaven and earth. For the development of immortal sects, they used the immortal treasure, 9 cauldrons, to set aside a space. This space that was guarded by 9 cauldrons, gathering all the spiritual energy, has turned into the legendary immortal realm. I guess sect leader and the rest have entered the 9 cauldrons worlds. The so-called 9 cauldrons worlds are separate lands of peace that are isolated by the arrays, asked the old man beside Nia Wuya in a murmur. Each of the 9 cauldrons sets aside a world, and 9 cauldrons set aside 9 worlds in total. That is to say, there are 9 independent immortal realms within and around our country. Nia Wuya nodded his head slowly. Can't the people from the 9 cauldrons worlds come out? Or can't we enter into the 9 cauldrons worlds? a Dan realm expert from a sacred clan, could not help but ask. I don't know. I really have no idea. Nya shook his head in bitterness. The 9 cauldrons guard 9 separate worlds that are namely Xianyuan, Ji, Huang, Yao, Shun, Yu, Tang, Xia, and Yongchang. As the 9 cauldrons gather spiritual energy, the cultivation speed within the world is faster by 4 to 5 times as compared to the outside world. Within 9 cauldrons worlds, there are many experts, including those in the immortal realm. Access to these worlds has been closed since 300 years ago. It was impossible to enter the 9 cauldrons worlds. That also marked extreme difficulties for people to come out as well. Unless you have the immortal treasure, along with immortal prowess, you will not be able to walk out of 9 cauldrons worlds. However, the 9 cauldrons have been suppressing the spiritual qi for over 1,000 years. When there is insufficient energy for the 9 cauldrons to gather, there will be a day when the 9 cauldrons worlds will emerge once again. Suddenly, a graceful yet haughty voice was heard, stunning everyone. All of them looked to the source of it. A girl beside the guild leader of Sacred Followers Guild lifted her chin as she spoke with pride. She seemed to be flaunting her knowledge. Hee, my disciple knows everything from astronomy to geography, the guild leader of Sacred Followers Guild explained to everyone with a smile. What does a kid know? An inborn expert of Donghua sacred sect pouted in disbelief. Who is the kid here? Who said I don't know anything? This world over here at Huashan is called Yongchang. There are 3 immortal sects in it which are called Yongchang Immortal Sect, Immortal Slaying Sect, and Dahong Immortal Sect. Shut your mouth if you don't know anything. Upon hearing someone challenging her, the lass was so furious that she growled at that inborn expert. You lass. Dong Wen, shut up. Before that inborn expert could finish his sentence, he was cut off by Nya cold bellow. This caught him by surprise as he quickly kept his mouth shut and looked over. He saw that Nya had disbelief in his eyes, staring at that little girl with glistening eyes. Yongchang, Immortal Slaying, and Dahong were not fictitious sects made up by the ancient people? Of course not. Not even Penglai Immortal Island. That's the place guarded by Yu Cauldron. You bunch of ignorant fellows, what do you know? 2. The little girl did not give any face to Nya as she spoke with contempt in his face. However, Nya emotions were stirred up, and he did not mind her rudeness. He murmured, little did I expect what sect leader told me to all be true. It's real. Immortal sect, there are immortal sects in this world. What do the 9 cauldrons worlds look like? Some of them mumbled as they craned their necks to look up at the sky above Huashan. There lay a hidden world known as Yongchang. Could the immortals who can ride on swords and kill someone from 1,000 miles away, driving on a cloud and somersaulting 1,000 miles, could they really exist? Some of the people were looking forward to it. Little girl, do you think our sect leader has a chance of coming out from the Yongchang world? Asked Nya with a solemn expression after taking a deep breath. If he was not killed by that swordsman, I guess he should have a chance of coming out. The little girl was not very sure, so she casually mentioned it. After all, he has already advanced to the budding realm and is considered to be an expert in 9 cauldrons worlds. But it is uncertain when he will come out. Maybe a few years or even more than that. It should be soon. Is that so? Nya and all the people from Donghua sacred sect felt relieved. The group from Diabolism also wiped the sweat away from their foreheads. Looks like the 9 cauldrons worlds are not as scary as one imagined. There are supreme experts everywhere. Sect leader Nya Wushuang, Emperor Qi, Dragon King, and the middle-aged swordsman already possess daunting powers. If they are not considered experts in that world, that would be too scary. Someone above the budding realm is known to be an immortal. That means to say, there are immortals and immortal sects in these worlds. Perhaps the inborn experts are everywhere, and Dan realm experts make up the highest number of people there. That would be too crazy. 9 cauldrons refer to 9 worlds. I wonder what kind of worlds they are, and what kind of encounter sect leader Nye Wushuang will be met with. Everyone was discussing fervently as the 9 cauldrons worlds opened a new horizon for them. 9 cauldrons worlds are too far from us. Nye Wuya and the rest of the experts looked blankly at the sky above Huashan. Let's postpone the battle between the orthodox sects and diabolism. From now on, we will not cross each other's paths. If you dare to provoke us, it will be the time when a bloodbath arises in Underworld. Nye Wuya paused for a few minutes as he called out while looking in the direction of Devil Corpse Palace. Fine. Diabolism will not attack anyone from the alliance of the orthodox sects within the next 5 years unless you guys attack us first. That goes without saying. An expert from Devil Corpse Palace pondered as he nodded while looking at all the experts of diabolism. Now they had a pact for 5 years. Great. At the same time, all the experts from the alliance of the orthodox sects and diabolism looked toward Dragon Sect. The reason for the peace between orthodox sects and diabolism was because of the uncertain factor, Dragon Sect. Now, the 3 forces were restraining one another. The day our Dragon King returns will be the day Dragon Sect fights the underworld. Mo Qinglong lifted his head and spoke to them in a flat voice. Phew. Upon hearing Mo Qinglong, Donghua Sacred Sect and Diabolism heaved a sigh of relief. It's a good thing for you guys, Dragon Sect, to stop finding our troubles. Regardless of the alliance of the orthodox sects or diabolism, they were all wonderstruck by Dragon Sect. The 2 swordsmen with charging sword and return sword had killed the former second expert in the underworld within split seconds. None from the underworld could take on such formidable swordsmanship. From then on, since Nye Wushuang, Emperor Qi, Dragon King, and the middle-aged swordsman entered the Yongchang world through the crack in the air, the underworld split into 3 forces pinned against each other. Chapter 546, Arrival of the Dragon. The underworld will likely have a peaceful period for some time. That's right. Everyone will probably be wary of the Dragon Sect. Damn. The strength displayed by the Dragon Sect today is truly insane. Towards the end of the battle, it was clear that sect leader Nye Wushuang had lost. Also, it was impossible for Emperor Qi to win. This was because the Dragon King was still standing 1,000 meters away while watching the battle develop. If it wasn't for the void space shattering today, the Dragon Sect would have ruled supreme. How did the Dragon King get so terrifying? He's just going to be 21 years old this year. When the Dragon King returns, the underworld will likely be under the Dragon Sect. I wonder, when will the Dragon King and the rest return? Hee hee. It's actually pretty good to have the Dragon Sect and Dragon King. Those they have killed were those that offended him or were from diabolism. The Dragon King has not killed an innocent without reason. For small characters like us, there's nothing bad about this. After the battles of the supreme experts at the tallest peak of Huashan, all the martial artists in the underworld didn't stay for long as they headed for the exit. The crowd discussed what had happened today excitedly. The major battles today had greatly enhanced their views of the world. Mo Qinglong and the rest from the Dragon Sect took a further glance at the space that the Dragon King had been sucked into. The next moment, they took flight and headed towards Rivertown. Protect the Dragon Sect till the Dragon King returns. As Dragonians and members of the Dragon Palace, they could still sense the existence of their Dragon King. This would mean that the Dragon King had not died. As long as the Dragon King was alive, they believed that he would return soon. They weren't worried about it in the slightest. Soon, all the martial artists of the underworld had departed from the tallest peak of Huashan. What was left was the ruined tallest peak of Huashan, which had cracked, and destruction that spanned over 1,000 meters. Amidst the mountain range, the land looked uniquely wretched. Who would have expected that guy to be so strong? Budding realm. Even my other brothers are a far cry in terms of talent compared to him. At the foot of the mountain of Huashan, 2 people remained. One was a young girl while the other was the guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild. Hee hee. I had not expected the Dragon King to have such exceptional talents either. It's truly frightening. Hee hee. Xiao Xiao, do you think the Dragon King could become an immortal? The guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild asked that little girl. There's a high possibility. That little girl was recalcitrant, but it was hard for her to not be convinced by Wang Xian. She pouted and added, I do feel that the middle-aged swordsman has a higher chance of reaching the immortal realm. His swordsmanship is really powerful. The guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild nodded his head silently before asking, shall we go in? Yes, master. Just follow me back. After all, it won't be long till we can enter and leave as we wish. Cultivation there will be 4 to 5 times quicker than here. At locations where the immortal sects are, it will be 7 to 8 times quicker. Since we have gathered the required information, let's get back. The little girl nodded her head, held on to the hands of the guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild and answered. All right, I'd like to take a look at the legendary land of the immortals, the world of Yongchang. The eyes of the guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild were filled with anticipation. Hee hee. Let's go then, the little girl replied with a smile. In her hands, she held several iPads. In them, there was a range of information on the current society. This was something that her father had asked her to gather when she was sent to modern society. This was done in preparation for when Yongchang descended on the current world. There were various bits of information on the current lifestyles and their technology. The little brat led the guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild to the peak of a mountain and rubbed a blue spiritual item on her neck. Wang! Suddenly, 2 pairs of terrifying arms appeared. 4 palms with fiery red gloves ripped apart the space of an area. Xiao Xiao, hurry! A voice came from the other end. The little girl jumped in immediately without hesitation. The guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild was shocked to witness this. 4 huge hands had ripped apart the space directly. He had no doubts that the energy in those hands could easily crush him to death. Pa pa! When he entered it, he fell towards the land immediately. The guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild was surprised to see the 2 pairs of fiery red gloves being destroyed by the spirit array instantly. While he was still in shock, a huge flaming palm appeared below them and led them towards a direction. All these actions were like those one would envision of an immortal. What the little girl didn't know was the exorbitant price of entering the Yongchang world. Although 4 to 5 budding realm experts could rip apart space, they would suffer terrifying attacks when they entered. The intensity of these attacks would be dependent on the strength of the martial artist. Even the powerful immortal realm experts wouldn't dare to. This was because the fatality rate was 90% and no one would like to take this risk. As for the 2 pairs of flaming gloves that had exploded previously, those were level 12 spiritual equipment. This was the price for allowing the 2 of them to enter. Just a while ago, Wang Xian had suffered attacks from the spirit array as he entered. The terrifying force sent chills down his spine. The destructive attacks made Wang Xian feel like he was going to be torn apart. However, Wang Xian was a divine dragon after all and had the body of a divine dragon. Before he felt he would collapse, he realized he had made it through. Nonetheless, his body was severely injured by the attacks. Before he could exhaust dragon energy to heal himself, he lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Yongchang world was the world suppressed by the Yongchang cauldron. The entire world wasn't huge and was roughly the size of a large province in China. Or roughly the size of South Korea. There were 3 immortal sects in Yongchang world and they were Yongchang Immortal Sect, Immortal Slaying Sect and the Dahong Immortal Sect. Yongchang Immortal Sect specialized in fire attribute, Dahong Immortal Sect specialized in water attribute, and Immortal Slaying Sect was known for their metal attribute sword cultivators. Together with the 3 immortal sects were 7 to 8 smaller sections. Dahong Immortal Sect was located in the middle of a mountain range. The tallest mountain could reach a height of roughly 5,000 meters, which was twice the height of Huashan. Rumbling sounds were incessant throughout the mountain range where Dahong Immortal Sect was located. Waterfall. There are waterfalls everywhere that start from the highest peak. Chirp chirp chirp. Spiritual birds flew in the sky. The water of the waterfall was exceptionally clear with fishes occasionally emerging. Birds swooped down from the sky and scooped the fish away as prey. Bam! A bird that was entirely white and almost a meter in size stood at the highest peak while staring vigilantly at the fishes before the waterfall. Just as it was about to swoop down, a figure dropped from the sky. The white bird was shocked and stared blankly at that figure which floated down the waterfall. Splitting the water while maintaining the water in its position for 5 seconds is the benchmark of gaining great mastery of Dahong sword technique. The results of all your assessments previously are generally below average. Practice diligently over this period. Below a waterfall, a lady stood in the middle and the water separated onto 2 sides automatically. Around her, several 20-odd-year-old young men and girls held long swords in their hands while slashing at the waterfall. Arg! At this moment, a horrifying scream resounded. A girl was horrified to see a figure falling from the waterfall before her. The arrival of the dragon. Chapter 547, Genius? Demon? 1. Mum, why did you bring him home? It's such an inconvenience to have a guy living in our house. We don't even know who he is. Don't you think it's inappropriate to have him in our house? He almost startled me to death today. Let's find out where he comes from and send him back immediately. While Wang Xian was in a trance, he heard a female voice. He frowned as he made a slight movement. His entire body was in pain as though it was going to break at once. Self-healing with dragon energy. Wang Xian made a thought. Self-healing will consume 1.97 million points of dragon energy. Continue. Damn, why is it so expensive again? Wang Xian twisted his expression a little. With a thought, he checked his own injuries and decided to use 500,000 points of dragon energy for a simple treatment. Linger, since he fell in Emifengyu, we cannot leave him there. I'll get an ancestral sect to check his identity and send him back. In order to treat him, we have already consumed a lot of resources from Emifengyu. Well. Stop speaking, lass. If your strength can achieve advancement, our Emifengyu will definitely receive more resources. Mum, I'll work hard. The voices outside continued to confuse Wang Xian. Where is this place? Void space shattered. Did I come to the world within the array, or? All sorts of thoughts flashed in Wang Xia's mind. He remembered the last battle scene clearly, when he was sucked into the array when it gave way. Arg! Mum, he's up. He's awake. Just then, a voice came screaming again, which Wang Xian found somewhat familiar. Subsequently, Wang Xian saw a lady and a girl walking toward him. The lady was charming, and he could only tell that she was mature and well-developed through her figure. There were no signs of aging on her face. The girl was around 22 to 23 years old, and she resembled the lady a lot. Yet, she was glaring at Wang Xian now with a face full of displeasure. Both of them wore some ancient clothing, which was unlike the modern style. Are you awake? The lady looked to Wang Xian as she flicked her finger, sending a stream of water current into Wang Xian's body. Are your injuries serious? Which sect are you from? I'll get someone to send you back, said the lady, looking at Wang Xian. Wang Xian froze for a moment as he did not answer the question of the lady, where is this place? He spun his head around, studying the surroundings as he asked with confusion. This is the Dahong Immortal Sect. Which sect are you from? Immortal Slaying or Yongchang? Or some other smaller sect? Asked the lady to Wang Xian plainly as she walked to the bed. Dahong Immortal Sect. Immortal Slaying? Yongchang. Wang Xian continued with his quizzical look. He felt like he had really entered into a strange world within that array. Don't tell me you have amnesia. And you forgot which sect you are from. Seeing his reaction, the girl at the side stalked over and scrutinized him. Looks like I have really entered into the world within the array. Wang Xian stared blankly at the ancient character embroidered on the girl's clothes as he was in a trance. Hey, I'm asking you a question. Did you lose your memory? Or are you a mute? The girl was displeased and yelled at Wang Xian since she could not get any answer from him. Wang Xian looked up to that girl. I think I lost my memory. The girl almost choked upon hearing his answer. This was the first time she saw someone admit that they had lost their memory in such a relaxed manner. Is this how someone with amnesia should act? Mom, look at him. He doesn't seem to be a good guy, and he does not have amnesia. He clearly wants to. The girl stared at Wang Xian furiously as she spoke to the lady beside her. The lady furrowed her brows slightly as she looked at Wang Xian. Don't you know Dahong Immortal Sect, Immortal Slaying Sect, or Yongchang Immortal Sect? I have no idea. Wang Xian shook his head and continued voicing his doubt. What is this place? We're at Yongchang. What do you remember? The lady fixed her flickering eyes on Wang Xian. Yongchang. My name is Wang Xian, and others call me the Dragon King. Yongchang. Wang Xian continued to look perplexed. Where is Yongchang exactly? A world within the array. Dragon King. Chapter 548, Genius. Demon. 2. Dripping Water Space. Dripping Water Earth. Dripping Water Stone. Raining Swords. Stone Splitting Rain. Evening. The sun lay diagonally across the horizon. A beautiful rainbow hung over the surrounding waterfall. Halfway up Avenue, a girl stood on a piece of empty land while waving the long sword in her hand constantly. Another lady stood by the side and watched the girl practicing her swordsmanship silently. Liquid state and gaseous state. Incredible. This level of control and sword technique. A short distance away, Wang Xian sat behind a table. With a book in his hand, he was shocked to see the girl waving her sword. The swordsmanship of the girl had truly opened a new door for Wang Xian. In the underworld, he had not encountered such incredible swordsmanship. Water can exist in liquid, gaseous and solid states. Solid states include ice, snow, frost and hail. Liquid states would include clouds, rain, mist and dew, while the gaseous state would include water vapor. In different forms and states, they will have different effects, attacks and damage. Yu Linger's incorporated sword into rain and sword into the mist. Each transformation has different effects. For example, the penetrative force of rain and the illusory effects of mist. Looking at Yu Linger, Wang Xian had lots of thoughts. In his hand, a ball of liquid appeared. Under his control, the liquid separated into droplets of water. Following which, it vaporized, condensed into water, turned into snow, turned into frost, turned into ice and eventually hail. All these were transformations of ice. In the past, I have rarely used water attribute because the offensive potency is a little weak. It might be better as a supporting attribute. However, it would seem that this was only because I do not know how to use them. Wang Xian sank into deep thought. After the ball of liquid transformed, how could he maximize the offensive potency? Spiritual Water Lance. At this moment, Wang Xian saw Yu Linger lunging ahead with the long sword in her hand. A stream of water flowed rapidly in her hands. Before the longsword contacted her target, the water flow on it attacked the target over a dozen times. When the longsword arrived, it easily penetrated the mountain rocks. I can't understand by watching alone. It would be best if I could join the Dahong Immortal Sect. In this way, I could obtain more battle techniques and more application techniques. Incredible swordsmanship. You are really great. After seeing Yu Linger practicing for a while, Wang Xian walked over while piling compliments on her. TSK. What do you know about this? Seeing Wang Xian walking over with pleasantries, Yu Linger lifted her head proudly and remarked. Although I can't really understand, I can tell that Miss Yu is really great with swords. Wang Xian smiled and didn't take offense. He turned to the lady and asked, Aunt Yu, can you teach me this swordsmanship too? Can I join the Dahong Immortal sect? Huh? The lady frowned upon hearing Wang Xian. Over the last 2 days, she was also pondering over how was she going to handle this unfamiliar young man. After 2 days of observation, she noticed that this young man didn't know about a lot of things. He had likely lost part of his memory. It isn't that easy to join the Dahong Immortal sect. You need to have the talents and strength. Before your strength reached the inborn realm, you would have to start with being an ordinary disciple. Why don't you go for the assessment of ordinary disciples? They are located at the entrance of Dahong Immortal sect. After you pass the assessment to become an ordinary disciple, the sect will allocate you accommodation. Yu Linger interrupted upon hearing Wang Xian. Clearly, she wanted Wang Xian to leave this place as soon as possible. Just as Yu has said, you need to start with being an ordinary disciple to join the Dahong Immortal sect. After you reach the inborn realm, you will then be considered as truly part of the sect. You can choose a mountain sect of your choice. Each mountain sect will have a mentor. If you wish to join the Dahong Immortal sect, you can consider taking part in the assessment. The lady looked at Wang Xian as she explained. Inborn realm? Wang Xian nodded his head slightly. Yeah, inborn realm. The best method to increase the speed would be at its liquid form, using water clouds to hover with the sword in the air. Illusory sword. Wang Xian leaped off the sword and made a thrust with the sword in his hands. Instantly, countless illusory sword images appeared around him. Sword rain. Wang Xian coalesced the dense illusory swords into razor-edge water blades that were suspended in the surroundings as though it was million swords into one. Chapter 550, Too Weak. Hey, junior brother. Since you have joined our Mtifengyu, tell us your name. The young man with a sky-blue longsword looked at Wang Xian, lifted his head slightly and spoke. Wang Xian. Wang Xian looked across the 20-odd young men and girls. He was a little impressed. All of them were inborn experts. A 20-year-old inborn expert would have caused a huge ruckus in the underworld. Yet, all of them here were inborn experts. If elite disciples are inborn experts, wouldn't the core disciples be Dan realm experts? Wouldn't elders and attendants be budding realm and the sect leader be immortal realm? This force is too insane. Wang Xian had decided that he definitely had to enhance the strength of Dragon Sect and Dragon Palace once he got out of this place. Otherwise, the Dragon Sect would be nothing when the immortal sects of Yongchang world were to descend upon the real world. Wang Xian. When the group of youths heard Wang Xian's simple introduction, they raised an eyebrow. How rude. Yu Linger pouted, picked up her sword and was on her way to practice her swordsmanship. Since junior brother has joined our Mtifengyu, I will have to guide you well in the future as your senior. Come, let your senior brothers and sisters see what you are capable of. A young man with hair that reached his waist raised an eyebrow. He lifted the longsword in his hand and gestured to Wang Xian with a smile. Wang Xian looked at the young man in a traditional outfit, shook his head and said, "It's all right." An inborn level existence couldn't pique his interest at all. Oh. Senior brother Huayu wants to get a sense of your strength. Don't you know what to do? You are new here and yet you dare to be so proud. Beside them, two young men chided Wang Xian coldly upon hearing Wang Xian rejecting the guidance of senior brother Hua Yu. "Junior brother, you are being a little rude here. Draw your sword." Hua Yu was a little surprised to be rejected by Wang Xian. The next moment, he waved the long sword in his hand as the glow of the sword swished past Wang Xian. The surrounding disciples simply watched with smiles. They held their swords in their embrace, smirked and watched with enthusiasm. Senior brother Hua Yu was the strongest among them. Whenever there was a new disciple, he would want to get a sense of his strength. The so-called sense was, in fact, showing the new disciple who was in charge here. In the entire Mifengyu, everyone was convinced of senior brother Hua Yu other than Yu Linger. Moreover, senior brother Hua Yu had been wooing Yu Linger. Seeing how Yu Linger was displeased with Wang Xian a while ago, he naturally wouldn't let this opportunity slip by. When the crowd saw how nonchalant Wang Xian was acting, they were a little unhappy too. "All right." Wang Xian nodded his head. He would have crippled a person like him, who courted his death, in the underworld. "Take this sword technique." Wang Xian smiled faintly and swung his long sword across. Instantly, dense illusory swords formed all around him. "Huh. You aren't too bad." Hua Yu focused his attention a little, moved his arms and gathered 10 water swords, which began circling around him. Slash! Wang Xian shouted plainly. Mist started forming around him as the illusory long swords shot towards the young man. Illusory swords? Hee hee. The young man's eyes were filled with contempt. He squinted and shouted, 10 Tears Blade. Illusory swords against 10 Tears Blade. This kid is a far cry from senior brother Hua Yu. I wonder how many strikes from senior brother Hua Yu he could withstand. When the surrounding disciples saw Wang Xian attack, they chuckled with contempt. Illusory swords was a sword technique that disciples below the inborn realm could practice. At their level, they had started learning Tears Sword and Water Sword. Bam! Ha! Sounds of metal clashing reverberated. Everyone could see Wang Xian's long sword being deflected away. However, the long swords that were deflected continued their attack by making a beautiful arc the next instant. The thousands of illusory swords around him were all heading towards senior brother Hua Yu. What? He's there. At this moment, a young man pointed to the back with a horrified expression. Everyone was taken aback and turned around. To their astonishment, they found Wang Xian standing more than 10 meters away. As for the illusory swords, they were being controlled to attack from a distance. Who would have expected our junior brother to be this good with the battle techniques of illusory swords? Hua Yu completed his 10 Tears Blade after knocking the long swords away time after time. In the end, the other swords came to attack him instantly. At this moment, his expression turned solemn. Before him, there were over 1,000 long swords hidden within the thin mist. He realized that the attack of every illusory sword was extremely forceful. Moreover, as they were illusory swords, they couldn't be crushed other than by deploying water energy to erase them. Great! Great! You are actually able to push me to this point. Hua Yu was looking a little embarrassed. He flexed his muscles and shouted, Descent of the Sword of Boundless. Swish swish swish. The next instant, 10 razor-sharp water swords were formed from water energy. Go! He shouted loudly and the long swords flew towards the core of Wang Xian's attack. If you don't wish to get injured, you better admit your defeat now, he reminded in a cold and arrogant tone. Yet, the crowd was completely stunned at this moment. They stared blankly at senior brother Hua Yu before turning to Wang Xian, who was more than 10 meters away. They couldn't help but gasp. Even Yu Linger was dumbfounded and in disbelief. Senior brother Hua Yu had been fighting with his illusion that used a metal longsword all along. As for Wang Xian, he was controlling the water energy from 10 meters away. This was totally toying with him. Complete domination. Senior brother Hua Yu still wasn't aware that his real opponent was watching him from 10 meters away when he was making those bold statements. Since you aren't admitting defeat, don't curse me for not showing mercy. Hua Yu shouted. He waved the long sword in his hand as he crushed illusory sword after illusory sword. Towards the middle of the sea of illusory swords, the razor-sharp water sword instantly erased the illusory swords. Too weak. After his attack, a voice filled with contempt resounded. What? When Hua Yu sensed that there wasn't anyone in the center of the sea of illusory swords, he had a bad premonition. When the dense mist dissipated, 6 razor-sharp water swords hovered around him and had him completely stunned. Wang Xian shook his head nonchalantly, waved his arms and the long swords before Hua Yu returned to him. This. None of the disciples of Embark knew how to describe this battle. The strongest among them all, senior brother Hua Yu, had been shouting and screaming before. Yet, he was made a clown by Wang Xian. Countless illusory swords and a metal sword were enough to toy with senior brother Hua Yu. This junior brother of theirs was really strong. It was especially so in the control of illusory swords. De Hong's sword technique focuses on the technique and not the sword. Illusory swords focus on the illusions and not the sword. Wang Xian gained a little understanding as he revealed a smile. The reason why De Hong Immortal Sect wasn't a sect of sword cultivators was because their cultivation wasn't in the sword, but the techniques and tactics behind the sword. After some hesitation, Wang Xian continued. Mentor Yu, what kind of qualifications do I need to have in order to get the best cultivation technique of De Hong Immortal Sect? The best cultivation technique? Mentor Yu was slightly stunned. Soon after, she chuckled and said, it seems like there are things you do not understand. There are only 3 sects in Yongchang world. There's no stringent requirements to obtain the cultivation technique of the various sections. As long as you have the resources, you can even obtain the cultivation technique of Yongchang Immortal Sect. Resources are all you need to exchange for the most formidable tactics and battle techniques of De Hong Immortal Sect. Wang Xian froze for a moment. I can exchange the techniques directly with resources. That's way too easy. But soon, Wang Xian understood the reason behind it. Yongchang world was too small to have 3 major immortal sects. Having 3 sects in such a small world would, in fact, be overcrowded. Thus, each sect had relatively fewer people. Since the 3 immortal sects could stay together in a world, that must have been due to them being on good terms with one another. With a smaller population and smaller land, they did not value a cultivation technique of their own. It was to the extent that the offspring of De Hong Immortal Sect's disciples could switch to Yongchang Immortal Sect. This world was a rather peaceful place. Following Mentor Yu, he soon arrived at the foot of a vast mountain. Peak Wushi is the registration location for all disciples. There are other mountains like Scripture's Depository, Sword Cleansing Peak, and Assessment Peak. You'll find out when the time comes. There's a big city just outside of that mountain entrance. All the daily supplies can be bought with spiritual stones over there. You can earn spiritual stones through work or exchange for them with resources. Mentor Yu explained to him. Wang Xian nodded slightly, as this was similar to how the real world worked. Oh. Mentor Yu, you're here. The timing is just right. I don't have to notify you on a separate note. A middle-aged man spotted the lady and spoke to her with smiles upon entering Peak Wushi. I brought a disciple here to join Embark. What's up, Attendant Lu? Asked Mentor Yu to a middle-aged man with a flat voice. Big news. Here. Attendant Lu swept a glance at Wang Xian before he tossed a jade stone to the lady. Memento stone. The lady froze for a moment before instilling her energy in it, and a screen suddenly popped up before Wang Xian. He was super shocked to see the screen in front of him. On the screen was an iPad. Yes, it's a tablet. Some real-life scenes were playing on the tablet. This is the situation of the outside world for the disciples to prepare themselves for the future, Attendant Lu said slowly. We have not come into contact with the outside world for 300 years. Never did I expect it to undergo such a drastic change. This is amazing. Mentor Yu exclaimed in surprise as she checked out the pictures on the screen. Hee, they called this technology. But the underworld outside is said to be very weak. I heard that Dan realm experts can proclaim dominance in the underworld. The entire underworld only has a few hundred inborn experts. Ha, the outside world is just too weak, said the middle-aged man, chuckling. Is that so? The spiritual energy is too sparse outside as compared to our place. Mentor Yu shook her head slowly. Their resources are simply too little. We have been consuming our resources over here for more than 1,000 years. They're almost depleted too. I wonder when the spiritual energy in Yongchang Cauldron will be exhausted, and when our spirit array will disappear. Chapter 552, My Name Will Start to Spread, 1. Wang Xian stood by the side, listened to their conversation, and was completely shocked. He stared blankly at the image on the memento stone. I had not expected someone to have entered reality and gotten their hands on this information. It would seem like this world will surface in reality soon. Wang Xian's eyes flickered and he felt a sense of urgency suddenly. If a world like this were to surface, inborn experts would be everywhere. People in the Dan realm wouldn't be considered experts and one would have to be a budding realm expert to rule over a small area. In fact, even immortal realm experts might be present. At that time, what would Dragon Sect be before them? They probably would be crushed and overwhelmed completely. For him, even if he had turned into a divine dragon, he wouldn't win against these immortals who knew powerful skills and battle techniques. I've got to increase my level soon. Otherwise. For the first time, Wang Xian felt a sense of urgency. He had to reach level 9 so he could remain fearless when facing immortal realm experts. Qianmei, you are here too. What a coincidence. At this moment, the voice of a middle-aged woman came from the side. TSK. Mentor Yu snorted at the middle-aged lady and wasn't hiding her annoyance with her. Hee. Huh. You have a new disciple. There's a new disciple who is willing to join Yu. The beautiful middle-aged lady looked at Wang Xian with a smile. Hey kid, Yu is among the bottom 3 of the 20 mountain sections. They don't even have a Dan realm disciple. Did you get scammed here? Leng Yan, shut your mouth. Upon hearing her words, Mentor Yu stared harshly at her. Did I say something wrong? I'm just letting an ignorant kid understand the picture and not be scammed by others. He. The beautiful middle-aged lady who was being addressed as Leng Yan chuckled and stared back at Mentor Yu with ridicule. The matters of my Yu have nothing to do with you. Mentor Yu clenched her fist tightly but released it shortly after while glowering at the middle-aged lady. TSK. Leng Yan lifted her head slightly and stared back at Mentor Yu in a confrontational pose. Attendant Lu shook his head bitterly and walked to the side. Clearly, he had no intention to interrupt. Master, if he's joining Yu, he can't be talented. One could easily tell that he's a rookie, said the girl beside Leng Yan with ridicule. The girl had thin lips and almond-shaped eyes with the ends inclining up. Overall, her appearance wasn't pleasing. That's a given. If he were a talent, he wouldn't be joining Yu. Leng Yan chuckled. Hey, little brother, do you want me to guide you a little? The girl turned around and asked Wang Xian with a face of contempt. Attendant Lu. Please register my disciple. Seeing and hearing the two of them criticizing and ridiculing Wang Xian, the sword in Mentor Yu's hand was shaking a little while she spoke to Attendant Lu. "Alright. What's your name?" Attendant Lu responded immediately and asked loudly. "Wang Xian." Wang Xian replied in an emotionless tone. He turned around and looked at the girl with almond-shaped eyes. "Please guide me along." In the next instant, Wang Xian drew his sword and pointed it at the girl. "What?" Attendant Lu was about to register Wang Xian's name when he suddenly heard Wang Xian. He was taken aback and was shocked to witness what Wang Xian was doing. Mentor Yu, Leng Yan, and that girl were also taken by surprise. Fengyu had been one of the strongest 3 mountain sects in the past. Since Mentor Yu's husband, Fengyu, died and their elite disciples were killed, their overall strength had declined and was ranked among the bottom 3 at this moment. Currently, all the disciples of Fengyu were the leftovers from the other major mountain sections. Over the last 2 years, no new disciples had joined Fengyu and the resources allocated to it had been declining over the years. Those who had joined Fengyu definitely wouldn't be disciples with ambitions or talent. Yet, this dim-looking guy that Mentor Yu had brought over wanted to challenge Leng Yan's disciple. Leng Yan's disciple would at least be of pinnacle inborn level. "You must be courting death." Seeing that Wang Xian had the guts to challenge her, that girl wasn't furious at all. Instead, she looked at Wang Xian with contempt and ridicule. She swung her arm, drew her long sword and pointed directly at Wang Xian. "Wang Xian, stop!" Surprised by Wang Xian drawing his sword, Mentor Yu was astonished and wanted to stop him immediately. Since he had drawn his sword, there's no reason to retract it back. "Qianmei, could it be that you are trying to interfere with the sparring of disciples?" Leng Yan stared at Mentor Yu and spoke with a radiant smile. "Let's get started." Wang Xian had no intention of stopping at all. The long sword in his hands instantly released grayish water energy. Illusory swords appeared and completely covered his presence. "Illusory swords? Hee hee. Let me teach you that you should keep a low profile." The girl with the almond-shaped eyes smirked and her sword glowed in dazzlingly blue light. "I'll counter your illusory swords in a single strike," the girl shouted nonchalantly as she lunged ahead with her long sword. Wang Xian flexed his muscles and over 100 illusory swords shot towards that girl. At the same time, a water clone held his long sword and charged ahead. "Break!" The long sword in the girl's hand descended from above and clashed heavily with the illusory swords. Countless illusory swords were erased instantly as the long sword shot towards that human figure. Seeing that the human figure wasn't attempting to dodge, ruthlessness gleamed in the eyes of that girl. She didn't hold back her strength at all. Bam! Sounds of swords clashing resonated as the human figure was slashed apart by the descending sword. "Shit!" The next instant, the girl's expression sank. 3 razor-sharp water swords were shot towards her vital spots and it was too late for her to dodge. Presumptuous. When Leng Yan witnessed the development of the battle, her expression changed drastically. She waved her arm and a water shield appeared before the girl instantly. Bam! 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 The water swords fell on the shield. The girl's face was covered in cold sweat. Her eyes widened and were filled with disbelief as she stared at Wang Xian, who was standing 5 meters away. Wang Xian pulled back his arms and the sword returned to his hand. He turned to Mentor Yu and said, "Mentor Yu, which mountain sect is she from?" "Mt. Leng." Mentor Yu was taken aback but she soon gave Wang Xian a smile as she replied. "Trash." Wang Xian remarked plainly. This shocked Mentor Yu once again as her smile deepened. "Attendant Lu, we will be leaving now. Don't forget to register him." Mentor Yu's lips curved up slightly as she spoke to Attendant Lu before walking out. Dang! Wang Xian put his long sword back in its scabbard and followed behind Mentor Yu, leaving the embarrassed Leng Yan and her disciple. And the dumbfounded attendant Lu. Going forward, keep a low profile in the mountain sect. When you reach the Dan realm, you can then start showing your edge. You are still a little too weak currently. Practice diligently and I'll guide you if there's anything you don't understand. Walking out of Peak Wusher, Mentor Yu paused for a moment and reminded Wang Xian of this. Wang Xian nodded his head silently but didn't take the reminder to heart. Now that information on the real world had surfaced, he was getting a little anxious. Initially, he was preparing to grow silently, away from attention while mastering some battle techniques and tactics. At this point, time wasn't on his side. He had to quickly master the battle techniques and tactics while gathering more resources. To get more resources, there was only a single way. That was to become the most glaring genius. My name will start to spread. Chapter 553, My Name Will Start to Spread, 2. Go ahead with your practice. I'll give you another sword. After they went back to Emifengyu, Mentor Yu spoke to Wang Xian with a radiant look after taking a look at the long sword in his hand. Yes, Mentor Yu. Wang Xian nodded and suspended his sword in the air. He took the sword at his feet and rode to the waterfall. Let's hope he will bring some hope to Emifengyu by advancing to Dan realm. Seeing Wang Xian's figure, Mentor Yu sighed with flickering radiance in her eyes. Shoo! The speed of Wang Xian riding on the sword was so fast that he was quickly at the waterfall. More than a score of Emifengyu's disciples were training over there while Wang Xian flew into the air above them. Upon seeing Wang Xian riding his sword and overlooking them in the air, the group of disciples was slightly pissed off. His act was an obvious show of contempt for all of them. Hey, why are you doing up there? Get over here for your training. Yu Ling'er called out to Wang Xian, irked when she saw him. Wang Xian looked at Yu Ling'er and swept his gaze across all the people. With a faint smile, he said, You guys are just too weak, show me what you've got. You guys are just too weak, show me what you've got. What he said just struck more than 20 disciples with extreme self-contempt, and everyone froze. Even Yu Ling'er and Hua Yu, who'd been defeated in the morning, was caught by an unexpected surprise. Brat, what did you just say? Yu Ling'er pointed the sword in her hand at him as she spoke with anger. Nothing, I just want you guys to show me what you've got. Bam, 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 bam. As Wang Xian remarked, figures that looked exactly like Wang Xian suddenly popped out from behind the waterfall. In a brief moment, more than 20 water clones emerged. Show me what you've got. Without giving them any time to hesitate, he struck at the group of people below. Fuck, who the hell do you think you are? Damn you, how dare you talk big and challenge all of us? What an arrogant guy. The disciples were infuriated upon seeing the disdainful look on Wang Xian, who was charging toward them. Yu Ling'er was livid as she said, You're looking for a beating. Just show me your inborn level capability and try all your sword techniques on me. Wang Xian drew his lips slightly. Since he needed to become a genius over here, he had to convince all the disciples of Emifengyu. Burst. Bam. In an instant, 2 water clones exploded into water vapor, enveloping the surroundings within a range of 1,000 meters. Everyone was shrouded in the water mist. However, it did not affect them at all. Humph, how dare you challenge all of us alone? You're really a brazen fellow. Today, let me teach you a lesson. Hua Yu scowled at Wang Xian furiously. His entire body was emitting azure blue radiance while a fogless space showed up around him. Hua Yu had not taken his eyes off from Wang Xian. Illusory sword. Wang Xian looked at all of them while the water mist convened into thousands of illusory swords. In creating this many illusory swords with inborn level strength, the damage of these swords was too sparsely spread. These illusory swords have no power. Ignore them, the disciple called out loudly. Take care of this brazen fellow, over a score of disciples exclaimed together. He's up there. Needless to say, everyone locked onto Wang Xian and lurched at him. With a smile, a water clone suddenly broke out an immense amount of energy 10 meters away. Over there. Since Wang Xian was surrounded by water vapor, they could only rely on energy to lock onto his location. More than a score of people thrust at that water clone instantly. Go! Wang Xian waved his sword in the air, and the illusory swords behind the group started to solidify and turn into razor-edge water swords. Oh no, how can his water control ability be so strong? Whoosh! Arg! Damn, that's a fake one. The real one is here. Oh no, this one is also fake. Arg! How can it be? Damn, he's toying us. This is impossible. How could he be so terrifying with his water control ability? Even half-step to Dan realm experts are not that sick. Panic and incredulous voices were heard everywhere. You guys are just too weak. Wang Xian said in a dull tone. With a glimpse, he converted the illusory swords into water swords, which landed behind Yu Linger and Hua Yu. Oh no, behind you. Bam, bam, bam. A splashing sound was heard when some of the last disciples fell in the water. Wang Xian swung his arm while the sword went back to his hand. All the illusory swords around him disappeared as he looked at the 20-odd disciples who were in the water. How is this possible? How can your sword technique be so powerful? Yu Linger stood in the water as she questioned Wang Xian loudly in disbelief. You're not an inborn. An inborn would not have such strong power over water. Controlling water clones is not something easy, and an inborn can't create these numbers of illusory swords. Hua Yu glowered at Wang Xian with red eyes as he questioned Wang Xian. What I just displayed was really inborn level strength. Wang Xian overlooked them. What he had shown just now was really inborn level strength. However, his energy was immense, and his water control ability was superb since he was a divine dragon. You guys are just weak. Still the same words. The group of people had heard him repeat the same line a few times. A mixed expression was plastered on Yu Linger as she had not expected this at all. The young man who scared her to death was such a formidable character. The rest of the 20-odd disciples trembled slightly as they realized they'd lost to a new junior who'd just joined them. Besides, the fact that he defeated 20-odd people alone amazed them, and at the same time, struck panic into them. You, come over. Wang Xian pointed to Hua Yu. What? Me. Seeing Wang Xian pointing at him, Hua Yu was stunned, with trepidation in his eyes. He was brought over in the morning, and now, Wang Xian had beaten them all single-handedly. Hua Yu was already unnerved at this moment. Seeing Wang Xian calling out for him, his consternation grew. Come over, said Wang Xian flatly as he looked at Hua Yu. What do you want? Mentor Yu is coming. When she comes, she won't spare you. Hua Yu looked at Wang Xian with the deepest fear as he staggered back involuntarily. I didn't hurt you just now, and I won't do it now either. Come over. Seeing Hua Yu's behavior, Wang Xian shook his head with disdain. You. Fine, I'll go. Hua Yu felt instant humiliation when he spotted the belittling look in his eyes. Gritting his teeth, he came forward to Wang Xian. How do you gain access to more resources? Asked Wang Xian straightaway. What? More resources? Hua Yu froze for a moment as this was an unexpected question from Wang Xian. Yes. Wang Xian nodded. There are two ways to gain more cultivation resources. We can either improve our ranking among the sects or get into the top 20 in the individual ranking. Hua Yu answered blankly. Is that so? Yes, there's no other way except these two. Hua Yu nodded quickly, as he did not dare to hide any truth. Now, he was terrified of this aloof junior brother. How do I improve the ranking of the sect? Wang Xian raised his eyebrow. You can issue a challenge anytime, and each sect will send 5 disciples for the challenge. Once we win against them, we can upgrade the level of our mountain sect. Wang Xian nodded his head in silence. Then he murmured, I wonder how much of a reward I'll get for thrashing the entire immortal sect. Chapter 554, My Name Will Start to Spread, 3. What? When Huayu heard Wang Xian mumbling, he looked at him in shock. Thrashing through the entire immortal sect. Nothing. Wang Xian shook his head and added plainly, practice diligently. Huayu's face was flushed as he stepped aside, feeling embarrassed. The 20 disciples stared at Wang Xian with complicated feelings. Swish. What's the matter? At this point, a voice sounded suddenly. Mentor Yu appeared in the sky and was looking down at the disciples who had all fallen into the water. She was baffled. Nothing, nothing. Yu Linger shook her head immediately. There was no way she could tell her mother that Wang Xian had defeated all of them. That would be too embarrassing. Mentor Yu didn't pursue the question further. She looked to Wang Xian and said, Wang Xian, here's a sword for you. A blue treasured sword was thrown towards Wang Xian. Wang Xian reached out his hand, caught the sword and was taken aback. Phantom Sword, Level 11. Level 11. It's a level 11 spiritual weapon. Wang Xian was astonished. Pulling the sword out of its scabbard, he realized that the blade was blue and almost transparent. Moreover, the edge was incomparably sharp. As he swung it, illusory swords were left behind. Great sword. Holding the phantom sword in his hands, Wang Xian's eyes beamed with excitement. If there's anything you need, you can let me know. Mentor Yu added. Mentor Yu, do you have battle techniques or tactics? Wang Xian asked directly. I'm not imparting battle techniques or tactics. The disciples of our mountain sect are allowed into the scripture depository for an hour each month. In 5 days, you will be able to enter the scripture depository to choose. I have an elixir pill here too. As she spoke, she threw a blue elixir pill to Wang Xian. Ripple Pill, Level 5. Extractable Dragon Energy, 110,983. Wang Xian didn't hesitate at all as he caught it. He bowed at Mentor Yu and said instantly, Thank you, Mentor Yu. Alright. Practice diligently. I hope you can lead Yu to a new level. Mentor Yu smiled and shook her head. She looked across the surrounding disciples before taking off on her sword to return to the mountain peak. I'll definitely return this favor. Looking at the disappearing figure of Mentor Yu, Wang Xian thought to himself. He lifted the elixir pill and swallowed it instantly. Mentor Yu probably knew about Wang Xian's strength. Otherwise, she wouldn't give him a spiritual sword and an elixir pill. When the surrounding crowd saw the spiritual sword in Wang Xian's hands and the elixir pill he had just consumed, envy filled their eyes. Even Yu Linger was envious of him. What's the ranking of our mountain sect currently? Wang Xian diverted all the dragon energy he obtained to heal his injuries as he asked Huayu. 19th. There are a total of 20 mountain sects and we are currently ranked 19th. Huayu felt a little embarrassed as he answered. Where's the 18th ranked mountain sect? Wang Xian asked Huayu. Huh? Huayu was stunned for a moment but quickly replied, they aren't very far from us. You are going to challenge them? As he spoke, his eyes lit up. The surrounding crowd also looked at Wang Xian with surprise and shock. Lead me there. Wang Xian replied directly. Alright, alright. Huayu's eyes beamed up. Considering Wang Xian's strength, he definitely could defeat the 18th ranked mountain sect. Let's go. Follow me. Huayu turned to Wang Xian and stepped on his sword. Let's go. Wang Xian nodded his head and took off on his sword. Go. Let's go too. Follow them. The disciples of Embark were exhilarated. Wang Xian would be challenging the 18th ranked mountain sect. Even if Embark was to just advance by a single position, the resources they would be getting would still be substantial. Yu Linger hesitated for a moment but still took off on her sword and followed behind. Wang Xian, the 18th ranked mountain sect is Embark. They have 25 disciples and the strongest disciple is Wang Beichuan. He's a little stronger than me. However, you are rather strong. Together with junior sister Linger, Zhao Qian, Lu Dong and me, we definitely will win against them. Hua Yu explained to Wang Xian with ecstasy. To challenge a mountain sect, each mountain sect would have to send 5 representatives. They could choose team battles or individual battles. The challenger would be the one to choose. These were the rules of Dahong Immortal Sect. However, Wang Xian didn't pay any attention to the rules. He really had no regard for the strength of Hua Yu, Yu Linger and the rest at this moment. Embark was roughly 3 kilometers away from Embark. However, the distance of 3 kilometers was only a matter of several minutes. Wang Xian, let's fly in directly on our swords. Flying directly into a mountain sect on the sword symbolizes taunting and challenging. Hua Yu continued to explain the rules to Wang Xian. Wang Xian nodded his head and followed behind Hua Yu towards the training ground of Embark. At this very moment, 20-odd disciples of Embark were practicing. Some were resting by the side. There were also disciples who were flirting with each other. A petite girl sat on the huge rock by the side and was chatting joyously with a few other young men and girls. Huh? Someone's coming. A challenge? At this moment, the disciples who were practicing saw a group of people approaching while riding on their swords. They were astonished. Challenge? Who dares to challenge us? The disciples of Embark squinted their eyes as they tried to catch a glimpse of Wang Xian and the group. Embark is here for the challenge. Hua Yu shouted loudly and his voice reverberated across several kilometers. Embark. They are from Embark. They actually dare to challenge us. We just gave them a tough beating last month and yet they dare to come to us today. They must be asking for a beating. TSK. Could it be Hua Yu has made great improvements in swordsmanship? The disciples of Embark stared harshly at the disciples of Embark who were approaching. Yo, who would have expected people to challenge your Embark? At the huge rock, a young man turned to the petite girl and commented with a smile. They are disciples from Embark. They are most likely no match for us, the petite girl answered. Her eyes squeezed into a line when she smiled, making her look adorable. Hee hee. This is interesting. Sparring between rookies? Let me go take a look. What do you mean, senior brother Liang? What do you mean by sparring between rookies? The petite girl grumbled unhappily at that young man. Isn't the battle between the 18th and 19th ranked mountain sects a great example of rookie sparring? Ha! The young man laughed loudly. TSK. I'm not going to talk to you. You are the rookie. So what if your mountain sect is rank 12? The petite girl stared at the young man unhappily. Alright, it's my fault. Let's go take a look. The young man carried the girl up as he walked ahead, seemingly going for a show. Several young men around him also followed him ahead. Hua Yu, didn't I teach you a lesson last month? Why are you here again? On the training field of Embark, a young man lifted his head up slightly. He stared harshly at Hua Yu as he remarked. Hee hee. You guys are definitely going down today. A 5-on-5 group battle. Do you have the guts to accept? Hua Yu snorted coldly. Wang Xian's presence had emboldened him. Ha! Great. My hands are still feeling a little itchy and would love to have you as a punching bag. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.